Bai Bai and Lei Lan had well and truly been won over by Han Li, and a hint of awe and veneration also appeared in Qin Zio's eyes after her astonishment had subsided. However, Han Li's expression and demeanor remained completely unchanged as he waved a hand toward the three holy disciples, then continued onward in silence. The other three immediately followed along behind him as streaks of spiritual light. Fellow Taoist Qin, I recall that the Green Knight race sent more than one holy disciple. Where are the other fellow Taoists? Lei Lan asked. Our race sent a total of 3 holy disciples, but we were attacked by several holy disciples from opposing branches after entering the 2nd level, and the other 2 have all perished. I originally intended to try and sneak into the 3rd level and perhaps obtain an infernal flame fruit by some miraculous stroke of luck, but I encountered those yellow-wind beings along the way and was hunted all the way here. Qin Zio replied with a bitter expression. Oh, 6 yellow-wind beings were deployed just to hunt you down, Lei Lan asked with a meaningful look in her eyes. Qin Zio hesitated momentarily before elaborating in a careful voice. Perhaps it's because I'm carrying several treasures from our race. I see. Lei Lan wanted to continue her line of questioning, but it didn't seem appropriate to do so. However, Bai Bai suddenly interjected. For the Yellow Wind race to expend so much manpower, could it be that you're carrying one of the 3 paramount treasures of your race? Qin Zio's expression changed slightly, and she was silent for a moment before giving a resigned admission. I did indeed bring our race's chaotic flask with me. The chaotic flask? You mean the treasures capable of unleashing the power of chaos to combat enemies? Both Bai Bai and Lei Lan stirred upon hearing this. Indeed, without that treasure, a mere mid-spirit general like me wouldn't have been able to escape from the yellow wind beings for so long. Unfortunately, every time I use this flask, it requires the expenditure of several chaotic crystals. Even though I took all of the crystals our Green Knight race had, I've exhausted the entire supply by now, Qin Zio sighed. Both Lei Lan and Bai Bai cast a glance toward Han Li upon hearing this. However, Han Li didn't turn back even once this entire time, as if he couldn't even hear their conversation. Seeing as Han Li was completely disinterested, Lei Lan and Bai Bai exchanged a glance before speaking no further on this matter. Instead, they began to discuss some other matters about the 3rd level of the Earth Abyss with Qin Zio. Qin Zio heaved a massive internal sigh of relief upon seeing this. The Green Knight race and the Tian Peng race did indeed have an alliance agreement, but that was only a verbal agreement with no way to actually bind the 2 parties to the agreement. As such, with Han Li's insane abilities, she would be completely powerless to resist if he decided to take her treasures. On the contrary, if she could win over Han Li as an ally, she would be a lot safer here in the Earth Abyss. With that in mind, Qin Zio showed no intention of leaving, instead choosing to chat with Lei Lan in an extremely friendly manner, trying her best to befriend the Tian Peng race holy disciple. Soon they were as close as sisters, and Bai Bai couldn't help but furrow his brows upon seeing this. 2 days later, the group finally emerged from the mountain ranges, having slain many waves of mid-grade and low-grade demon beasts along the way, only to emerge in a world of ice and snow. Thus, they were forced to slow down and carefully survey the scenes up ahead. There was a vast expanse of translucent black glaciers that extended for as far as the eyes could see, and countless black snowflakes were blown through the air amid gusts of frosty winds. Sharp cries could also be heard all around them, as if there were countless malicious ghosts wandering within the depths of these glacial lands. From a distance, the land up ahead was completely black and devoid of light, as if it were leading straight into the underworld. This must be the renowned baleful glacial lands of the 2nd level. I've heard that there are many low-grade and mid-grade baleful glacial demons in here, and there are even some people who have occasionally encountered baleful glacial demon monarchs, Han Li murmured to himself. These are indeed the baleful glacial lands, Brother Han. However, most of the demon beasts here have yet to attain intelligence. As for baleful glacial demon monarchs, there have only been rumors about their existence here, and almost no one has actually seen them in person, Qin Zio immediately replied. This place looks quite treacherous, but with our powers, it shouldn't be much of an issue for us to pass through it, Bai Bai said with a confident smile. Han Li nodded before spreading his wings as he said, theoretically, this place isn't very dangerous, but the Earth Abyss Beast Torrent is imminent, so it's best to be more careful. All right, let's go in. He sped to around twice his original speed, disappearing into the world of black ice and snow in just a few flashes. Lei Lan and the others glanced at one another before quickly following suit. From a distance, one could see streaks of spiritual light flashing through the air, but those streaks of light quickly disappeared into the darkness. A rhinoceros-like demon beast that was over 100 feet tall crashed heavily to the ground amid a resounding boom, causing the nearby ground to tremor with its enormous weight. Brilliant red light flashed, and several tens of red threads shot forth from within the rhinoceros body before disappearing into the body of a humanoid figure in the air that was radiating red light. There were a few other winged humanoid figures hovering in the air, and one of them said in a loud voice, "Senior Marshal Brother Zhu, your crystal flame threads are becoming more and more powerful. This mid-grade black rhinoceros skin is harder than that of even some high-grade demon beasts, yet you were still able to slay it with such ease. Surely even Fei Yi of the Nan Long race doesn't possess such abilities." The one who had attacked the demon beast was none other than Zhu Yinzi of the Kai Rong race. The other people with him were naturally the other holy disciples of the same race. The place that they were situated in was a round base with a radius of thousands of kilometers. They were surrounded by dense black forests, yet there was a patch of barren land stretching for over 50 kilometers at the center of the basin, and this entire stretch of land was covered in gray head-sized oval stones. At the very center of this stretch of land was a black hole that was over 1,000 feet in size, leading deeper into the ground. The Kai Rong beings were situated near this hole, and that black rhinoceros had clearly emerged from the forest nearby before being slain by Zhu Yinzi. After a brief moment of contemplation, Kai Rongzi said, "HMPH, stop trying to suck up to me. We've waited here at this entrance for 3 or 4 days already, but we've only killed the holy disciples of another minor branch. The Tianpeng race holy disciples still haven't turned up yet. It looks like they've either gone to one of the 2 other entrances or are still toiling away on the 2nd level. Most of the other holy disciples have most likely entered the 3rd level already. We have to kill these Tianpeng beings, but we can't give up on the infernal flame fruits either. How about this? Kai Tian, Hong Sha, you two follow me down to the 3rd level. Everyone else, continue to stand guard here. I'll bring back your infernal flame fruits for you." Senior Marshal Brother Zhu, the holy disciple with the Han surname from the Tianpeng race, seems to be quite powerful. Will we be sufficiently equipped to bring them down if we split up? Kai Tian asked with a concerned expression. Yinzi seemed to have considered this already, and he immediately assured, "Don't worry about that. Junior Marshal Brother Yu's cultivation base isn't inferior to mine by much, and I'll leave our race's falling soul bell with him. This bell attacks in a completely soundless and untraceable manner, and even great spirit generals will be forced into submission if they were to be caught off guard. With Junior Marshal Brother Yu unleashing sneak attacks from the shadows, there's no way anything can go wrong." He then opened his mouth to expel a ball of green light, within which was contained an antiquated little bell that was around an inch tall. He pointed a finger at the bell, and it abruptly disappeared, only to reappear above the head of a burly Kai Rong being in the next instant. "Thank you for entrusting me with this treasure, Senior Marshal Brother. I'll be sure to complete my assigned duty." The man with the Yu surname caught the bell expressionlessly, and his voice was oddly sharp, akin to the sound of metal grating on metal. Even though he was a man of few words, Zhu Yinzi seemed to be extremely confident in his abilities. As such, after a brisk nod, Zhu Yinzi waved a hand before entering the black hole with Kai Tian and Hong Sha closely behind him. "Listen up. From now on, all of you have to conceal yourselves so you don't betray any signs of our presence here. I'll set up a concealment formation and hide in there. Once our targets arrive, I'll use the falling soul bell to unleash a sneak attack against them. You can all show yourselves after that," the burly man instructed. The man was clearly quite an authoritative figure among the Kai Rong race holy disciples, and none of them stated any objections as they made hand seals or summoned their concealment treasures. Everyone else disappeared in the blink of an eye while the burly man flew into the black hole. Thus, peace and quiet resumed, and it really was as if no one was present in the area. Letter 1D487, letter 1D493, letter 1D65A, letter 1D486, letter 1D500, letter 1D4E. Letter 1D4EC, letter 1D664, letter 1D662. Elsewhere on the 2nd level, deep within a dense forest filled with massive dark green trees, there was a massive black and yellow pillar that was visible even from 50 kilometers away, standing atop a tall hill. Upon closer inspection, one would discover that this so-called giant pillar was actually a massive plant with a diameter of around 500 meters. It was as if it had been constructed from countless vines twisted and intertwined together, before extending all the way up into the sky. There was not even a single blade of grass growing within a radius of several tens of kilometers around this plant, as if it were situated in a barren desert. At this moment, there was a series of explosions erupting amid flashes of spiritual light of different colors at the foot of the plant. There were flying spirit race beings here, and they had been trapped at low altitudes nearby by tens of thousands of golden moths. There were two groups of flying spirit race beings here. One of them had a dozen or so members in each group, consisting of both male and female beings. However, all of them had black tattoos on their faces. Meanwhile, the other group consisted of only 4 members, but all 4 were remarkably tall and broad men with a massive blade strapped to each of their backs. The fist-sized moths flying around them were all of a shimmering golden hue. None of them approached the flying spirit race beings. They merely flapped their wings from afar to send waves of rainbow moth powder that's sweeping toward them, cutting off all avenues for escape. The moth powder appeared to be quite mundane, but the two groups of flying spirit race beings didn't dare to let so much as a single speck of powder come into contact with their bodies. All of them were unleashing secret techniques and treasures in rapid succession to protect themselves. Of the flying spirit tribe beings, only 2 stood still in the air and showed no intention of attacking. One of them was short and skinny, the 7-pass race's Xianxia. The other was a large dual-pupiled man. They both appeared quite indifferent and tightly frowned. Seeing the rainbow moth dust that surrounded the area and that their attacks were unable to affect it, the tall man slowly said, "Fellow Taoist Tao, this is the first time a demon insect like the gold abyss moth appeared on the myriad vine path. The insect should only exist on the 4th level of the earth abyss. There is something different about the earth abyss, causing these deeper-level demons to appear here." Xianxia coldly replied, "I already knew that. Since mid-grade demons can be encountered on the 1st level, it isn't much of a surprise to find gold abyss moths here. Those old B-*** stards in the clan should be behind this, not us. But if you're still following me after we reach the 3rd level, don't blame me if I cut you down." The tall dual-pupiled man's gaze drifted off as he sullenly said, "Lady Ao is so heartless, but you've taken my heart nonetheless. I've already proposed marriage to your clan 3 times, but each time you refused. Would the marriage solidify our clan's strength? And from the rumors, you seem to only wish to wed the strongest holy disciple of the races. Could it be I still don't meet your standards?" He was the Nan Long's Fei Yi, a character as famous as Zhu Yinzi and Xianxia. Xianxia smirked. "That's right. The 7-pass race's holy disciples may only marry the strongest individuals of other branches. Others may not know about your skills, but I do. Your meager strength isn't enough for me to consider you. I may as well extinguish your vain hopes." Glaring at Xianxia, Fei Yi said, "I know that fellow Taoist Ao's abilities are powerful, but I don't believe the difference is so vast. I also don't believe there are others more suitable than me. If I am not considered, you must think of the others to be lesser as well. Or perhaps you fancy that Kai wrong youth named Zhu. In that case, I will find him and kill him. Zhu Yinzi, HMPH, he is suitable. If you feel dissatisfied, go and find him. However, I've also found someone else interesting during the gathering. Although I hadn't personally witnessed his power, I feel like his abilities are no lesser than mine. Which branch is he from? Tell me, I will go to this person. If his abilities are greater than mine, I'll leave you alone. But if he isn't, he. Fei Yi's expression quickly became sinister. The two spoke as if none of the other holy disciples were present, and they viewed the gold abyss moths' attacks lightly. With the surrounding moth dust suppressing them, the other holy disciples began to use their various abilities to protect themselves and slowly withdraw inch by inch. It appeared as if they wouldn't last much longer. Xianxia's expression stirred and she nodded. "It's fine if you want to test his abilities. That Tian Peng holy disciple seemed to be surnamed Han, and his face is unfamiliar. I don't know much else about him." Amazed, Fei Yi said, "The Tian Peng holy disciple. How could the holy disciple of that puny branch be so powerful?" "That is hard to say," Xianxia indifferently explained. "The Tian Peng are incredibly weak, but it's still possible for a genius to appear in their ranks. Don't forget that I've cultivated the most profound technique of the 7-pass race, the 7 apertures analysis arts. Its efficacy isn't something the other tribe branches can hope to achieve." Although I only looked at him from a distance, he gave me an unfathomable impression. If you truly pick a fight with him, try not to throw away your life. Fei Yi forcefully said, "That's fine. But if you're mistaken, I'll be heading over to your clan when the trial is over and I'll ask again to wed you. Don't forget, your rite of transformation is only a few more years. This time, you won't have the opportunity to refuse me." Ao Qing raised her head and snorted. "You actually know quite a bit." "That's right. In 3 years I won't be able to delay my coming-of-age ceremony any further, and my clan hasn't been able to find anyone in the same generation that is stronger than you. When we return, I will agree to your marriage proposal." Fei Yi wildly laughed and sneered, saying, "Then it's agreed. If I do encounter that hand fellow on the 3rd floor, it'd be for the best, but if I can't, I'll challenge him after we return. Since you have your sights on him, he shouldn't fail the trial." "Do as you wish." Ao Qing glanced around and indifferently said, "These insects are somewhat irritating. Will you get rid of them or will I?" "He, leave it to me. It's only a slight effort." The large man smiled and suddenly pressed his hand against the back of the sword. Suddenly, the sword hummed and surged to the sky, turning into a mass of dense golden light as it circled in the air. Meanwhile, Fei Yi leaped forward, turning into a strange bird with a worm head and a whale tail. He unfolded his wings and shot straight up. In several blurs, the large bird arrived at the mass of golden light and fused as one. When the surrounding moths saw him emerge from their defenses, they let out cries as they directly swarmed towards him. But before they drew close, countless clouds of dust rushed to the golden light ahead of them. A deafening boom suddenly vibrated the air. Soon, the golden light surged several times in size and streaked downward in an expanding violent storm. Layers and layers of incredibly dense dust were scorched away by the golden lightning, piercing through the dust clouds. As for the large numbers of golden moths hiding behind the dust, they quickly perished as the light passed them by. In the blink of an eye, nearly half of the moths had died. The gold abyss moths shrieked as they were massacred, and their remaining numbers scattered in every direction. When Ao Qing saw this, her expression sank and she muttered an incantation, summoning a huge black phantom behind her. The phantom was blurry, but it faintly resembled 7 distinct heads, those from animals like apes and leopards, but each and every one of them appeared menacing. With an incantation gesture, Ao Qing commanded the 7 heads to slowly open their crimson eyes and widely open their mouths. A cloud of green mist violently streamed out of each of them, quickly spreading out to their farthest surroundings in the blink of an eye. As the green clouds passed the moths by, they immediately ruptured in green flashes, leaving only a blood mist behind. Now the gold abyss moths were only 1/10 of their number. At that moment, the golden light in the air withdrew to reveal Fei Yi carrying a huge sword on his back. He looked at Ao Qing's 7-head phantoms with a trace of adoration on his face. A nimble black figure flickered. Several crystalline black demons were torn to countless pieces in a wave of white claw streaks, which promptly scattered them into black chi. The nimble figure cleanly absorbed the black chi drifting in the air and promptly circled in the air before returning to Han Li. A kitten-like creature soon appeared on his shoulder, the leopard Kirin beast. A beautiful woman, the Green Knight race's Xianxia, clicked her tongue in marvel as she watched from the side. She said, "I truly didn't expect Brother Han's spirit beast to deal with these ice fiends so efficiently. It acted before I could even sense they were there. Might I know the name of your spirit beast? This is the first time I've seen it." Lei Lan and Bai Bai looked at the leopard Kirin beast with equal surprise. Han Li stroked the small beast's soft head and smiled. "I'm not sure of its name myself. I came across this spirit beast on the outside. I didn't expect to be so fond of absorbing the ice fiend's chi." Not long after they entered the ice fiend area, the small beast sleeping with the weeping soul beast in his pouch woke up and contacted Han Li through their spiritual sense connection. Surprised to see that the beast wanted to quickly be let out, Han Li didn't dare to neglect it as it was incredibly capable in spite of its young age. Before any enemies appeared nearby, the beast quickly emerged from the ring. Not long after it appeared, Han Li and the others were given a shock. As soon as it emerged, it was not only actively awake, but it keenly sensed the ice fiends before they could fuse with the glaciers and before Han Li could sense them. The leopard Kirin beast promptly pounced with claws bared, slicing them into countless pieces and absorbing their remnant baleful chi into its stomach with great joy. Although the ice fiends didn't pose a threat to them, the fiends were skilled at concealment. If they suddenly ambushed the party while they were least expecting it, it would prove incredibly troubling. To prevent this, the leopard Kirin beast would simply scuttle away and let out a strange roar to the ice below, frightening away any ice fiends hiding in the deep ice sheet below. Han Li wasn't only surprised by this, but the others also grew interested in the beast. As such, the party continued on their way with the leopard Kirin devouring over 1,000 ice fiends. The beast's patterned yellow fur began to faintly shine with white light. The beast's cultivation appeared to greatly progress. As Han Li turned a blind eye to the beast's actions, he couldn't help but ponder to himself with chin in hand. Because the leopard Kirin beast only had the strength of a nascent soul cultivator when he first tamed it, Han Li rarely sent it out against enemies. But after he gave it an unending supply of rare medicine pills, its cultivation made huge bounds, and it now had the strength of a demon beast at the peak of grade 10. With another step, it would break through and become a deity transformation grade existence. According to conventional reasoning, most grade 8 demons would be subjected to lightning tribulation, gaining human form and full sentience. However, a few variant spirit beasts and beasts of peculiar bloodlines are an exception to this rule. There were a few that underwent tribulation at a different rank, or those that didn't transform during their entire lifetime. But when these exceptions did acquire a transformation, their wisdom and abilities would far exceed those from beasts of similar grade, to the point where they would outright exterminate them. The leopard Kirin beast was originally a strange beast that inherited the Kirin bloodline. Only the heavens knew if this was the opportunity it needed for a change, or if a later opportunity would come. But now it appeared. The Ice Fiend Chi gave the beast the chance to break through the bottleneck to deity transformation state. Han Li could only wryly laugh in his mind when he quickly realized what the beast was facing. If the beast were to break through any other time, it would be well received, but they were currently in the Earth Abyss. If the beast advanced during this period, it could provoke trouble. Lei Lan and the others didn't know the circumstances of the leopard Kirin beast, but the increasingly dazzling white light shining from its body and its growing aura amazed the party nonetheless. At that moment, their party already threaded deep into the Ice Fiend territory. They've nearly traveled halfway through the area. After the leopard Kirin beast devoured another mid-grade Ice Fiend, it crouched back down on Han Li's shoulder and closed its eyes drowsily. It was glowing with unending white light and roamed across its body in a blinding fashion. At that moment, the party was flying past an icy mountain range when they came across an extremely long canyon. Black winds stormed in the skies above it, appearing as if only the canyon was safe to pass through. Han Li and company wasn't surprised at all by the strange scene. They've seen this several times on their journey already, and they made their way into the canyon without any hesitation. The canyon wasn't very wide. It was only about 1 kilometer wide, but it was 3,000 kilometers deep. With the addition of the black winds whistling above them, they felt an indescribable gloominess cloud their mood. Fortunately, Han Li and company were unordinary people and didn't allow this strange atmosphere to cloud their thoughts. But then, Han Li's expression stirred as he heard a roar, and he couldn't help but turn his head. The leopard Kirin beast crouching on his shoulder stood up on its hind legs and widely opened its eyes. Its fur stood up on its back as if faced a great enemy. Han Li was stunned. The beast encountered so many ice fiends, but it never reacted like this. Could it be that? As the thought flashed through his mind, he came to a sudden stop. The others stopped one after another behind him and began to look around with suspicion. Without speaking a sword, Han Li looked ahead of him with blue light flickering from his eyes. Before the others could ask anything, he suddenly waved his hand in front of him. Golden light shot out from his palm and sliced at the canyon's depths. A huge boom erupted and golden light flashed through the darkness. It cleaved through the ice at the very bottom of the canyon, creating a narrow, long crack. A strange cry of pain sounded from underground, followed by a violent burst of black chi. In the blink of an eye, a 30-meter large ball of black mist had condensed. "It's an Ice Fiend King. There is truly such a demon here," Bai Bai cried out. Lei Lan and Qin Zhao were immediately startled. At that moment, the huge ball of mist spun in the air, gathering up countless shards of ice towards it from every direction. Black light blindingly shined as a 60-meter large black ice phoenix flew out from the mist. Its body was crystalline black and its eyes glared black, rigidly staring at Han Li. No, it was actually staring at the leopard Kirin beast on Han Li's shoulder as if it were its nemesis. The leopard Kirin beast snarled, excitement clear in its green eyes. Han Li raised his brow and pondered. Then he grabbed the small beast from his shoulder, and to the shock of everyone, he mustered his strength, throwing the beast high into the air. Han Li promptly spread his wings and disappeared in a flash of azure-white lightning, only to leave a clap of thunder behind. In the next moment, thunder rang above the ice phoenix, followed by Han Li's swift appearance. His shoulder blurred and a chain of afterimages passed by the phoenix as he made his way below it. The ice phoenix paused in surprise, soon letting out a cry of anger. It stretched out its claws to crush Han Li, a meager insect in its eyes. The black 3-meter-long claws immediately grabbed a hold of Han Li. Letter 1D65B, letter 1D493, letter 1D4E, letter 1D486, letter 1D500, letter 1D486, letter 1D484, letter 1D4F8, letter 1D4F6. However, Han Li didn't seem to care. His hands blurred as black-white fists left a torrent of afterimages above him. Booms deafened without end as black-white light erupted from the claws. The two huge claws began to break before shattering like porcelain. They crumbled inch by inch until they were no more. The black ice phoenix let out a world-shaking shriek. It opened its mouth and a black torrent of wind emerged. In the blink of an eye, the attack was about to submerge him from above. But Han Li only blinked as the black wind passed him by, and he suddenly vanished. The ice phoenix couldn't help but look around to see where he went. At that moment, a gentle wind blew from behind the black winds to reveal a silent figure. The figure stirred, arriving at the ice phoenix's back with ghost-like agility. His black-white fists flashed as he struck down Ice Phoenix's back with vicious power. Two huge explosions followed. Black-white halos of light ripped out from the impact, completely enveloping the phoenix's body. It didn't react in the slight. The huge phoenix began to crack like its claw and shatter in a rain of ice shards. The large black mist reappeared in the air, taking a formless shape and flickering with a strange black light. With a rustle of wind, a small silhouette appeared, pouncing at the black mist. It hugged it with its limbs and it began to feast. Its nose snorted with clear excitement. This was the leopard Kirin beast that Han Li had tossed high into the air. After the beast fell, it saw that the ice phoenix formed from the black mist was shattered. Of course, it wasn't about to turn away from such a great prize. It happily leaped forward and began to devour the mist. Since the black mist was a so-called ice fiend demon king, it was unwilling to be eaten by this small beast by all accounts. Not only did it lash out with black tentacles, but it also began to gather up black ice from the ground in an attempt to condense another body. However, the black tentacles were easily resolved with a swipe of the leopard Kirin's claws. As for the black ice, Han Li waved his hand, sending countless embers to melt them away. It only took Han Li the span of a few breaths to shatter the black ice phoenix. Although it wasn't the first time the party saw Han Li in action, they couldn't help to feel completely touched as this display of might. Their exceptions vastly changed. As the leopard Kirin beast stood on top of the black chi cloud, it appeared completely helpless and unable to move. In the blink of an eye, nearly half of the black cloud was devoured. Afterwards, the small beast let out a roar, and its body wildly flashed with light. Then, it leaped off the black chi and crouched on the ground. With a faint change of expression, Han Li flipped his hand and summoned a white jade bottle. He pointed it to the remnants of the black chi and muttered an incantation. The jade bottle twirled and its lid flipped, spouting out an azure mist. The mist roiled and gathered up the remaining strands of black chi before absorbing them back into the bottle. Bai and the others couldn't help but show a trace of envy. Although the Ice Fiend was called a demon king, in truth an ordinary deity transformation-grade existence could easily deal with it. However, they were also rarely seen. The pure chi of an Ice Fiend demon king could be used to refine pills, tools, or even cultivate secret techniques. It was far more valuable than the chi of a common Ice Fiend. However, since the demon was defeated by Han Li, they didn't dare to complain. A short moment later, the remaining Ice Fiend chi was completely absorbed into the jade bottle. Han Li waved his hand, retrieving the bottle in a streak of white, and had it disappear into his sleeve. At that moment, he glanced at the leopard Kirin beast with a trace of worry. It was curled up with white light, repeatedly pulsing from its body as its eyes drooped. As Han Li was connected to its mind, he could sense the beast's excitement, fear, and anxiousness all mixed into one. He sighed and slowly descended from the sky. He landed at the side of the beast and knelt down. He rubbed the beast's head and stroked its soft fur. Afterwards, he attempted to calm it with his spiritual sense. The leopard Kirin beast licked Han Li's hand with its pink tongue and began to gradually calm down. At that moment, the line of white light lit up from the pitch-black sky. Soon, they scattered and white motes of light began to slowly drift down. Meanwhile, the white light on the surface of the leopard Kirin beast began to turn pink. A wondrous fragrance began to emit from this body, arousing a sense of deep hunger to those that smelled it. It was as if the leopard Kirin beast had turned into a rare delicacy. Baffled by the actions of Han Li and the small beast, Bai Bai and the others were startled when they caught the scent. The scent of blackened meat. "Brother Han, your spirit beast is about to advance," Bai Bai said with a changed expression. Han Li stroked the small beast's fur a few more times before standing up. "That's right, I'll need to stay here for the day." With an unsightly expression, Bai Bai said, "The advancement of a spirit beast is a happy occasion, but it is inconvenient to happen here. Once the scent spreads, all the demons in the Ice Fiend territory will gather. If we're not careful, a powerful high-grade demon could appear and put us in danger." An icy glint flashed from Han Li's eyes as he indifferently said, "I know that, of course. Brother Bai, would you have me leave my spirit beast here?" "I didn't mean that only." When Bai Bai heard Han Li's unfriendly tone, he tried to explain himself. Han Li waved his hand and said with a resolute tone, "Regardless, if you feel it is dangerous, you may leave, but I will stay." When they heard him, Bai Bai and the others looked at each other in dismay, and they couldn't help but wryly smile. They didn't find Han Li's attitude out of the ordinary. They couldn't persuade him to choose them over his evolving spirit beast over them with words alone. At that moment, Han Li didn't pay attention to the other three and busied himself with other matters. The small beast's advancement will take at least an entire day. During this period, the scent it emitted would attract the nearby demons. Of course, since this was the Ice Fiend territory, the most demons would be Ice Fiends. Azure light flashed from his body as he soared into the air. He swept his hand past his storage pouch and summoned piles of formation flags and plates. He lifted them all with a single hand. Tens of streaks of light scattered in every direction, vanishing into the air without a trace. A chain of explosions sounded from the ground as 10 pillars of red light rose from the ice. Soon after, a 100-meter-wide spell formation was erected over the icy ground. The spell formation contained strange designs and scarlet talisman characters. A scorching aura spread out, filling the air with a burnt scent. This was a fire-attributed formation set that Han Li spent many spirit stones to acquire back in Deep Heaven City. It was called the Encompassing Flame Death Formation. Once it was laid down, when a deity transformation cultivator entered the formation was powerful enough that they wouldn't be able to immediately break out. It would be even more devastating towards ice-attributed demons. However, Han Li didn't stop there. He formed an incantation gesture and had 72 small golden swords fly out his body and above his head. They hummed as they turned into hundreds of identical golden lights. After a chant, Han Li pointed to the dense mass of sword lights. Suddenly, the hundreds of golden lights scattered and flickered out of sight. This was the Grand Oriate Sword Formation. With his cultivation at the peak of deity transformation, even a late spatial tempering cultivator wouldn't be able to escape unharmed. As for whether he'd be able to restrict a body integration cultivator, it'd be hard to say. He'd have to test it out first. With that done, Han Li floated above the spell formation and narrowed his eyes in through before shaking his sleeve. A ball of silver flame flew out, turning into a silver bird with a cry. It circled once into the air before diving into the ice. Han Li then raised his hand and summoned the triangular spirit carriage he used previously. The spirit carriage floated motionlessly above the spell formation, and Han Li sat cross-legged inside it, resting his eyes. At that moment, the specks of white light gathered, thoroughly gathering around the small beast, and the scent it released became even more alluring. Even Han Li's grand formations wasn't able to stop the scent from escaping it. The captivating fragrance and quickly spread to the distant darkness. Lei Lan and the other three were quietly talking with each other, deciding whether to fly away and stay in the spirit carriage. The three didn't want to deal with a frantic demon assault, but from the previous dangers they encountered, they would find it difficult to enter the third level, let alone find an infernal flame fruit. As such, the three could only force themselves to face the demon. Fortunately, Han Li had made ample preparations, and they viewed Han Li as someone of profound mystery. So long as they didn't face any excessively powerful demons, it was acceptable to remain there for the day. As time slowly passed, the white motes that drifted down from the sky became larger and fell in greater number, concealing the small beast entirely. The leopard Kirin beast had finally broken its silence and let out soft groans of pain inside the white light. Xianxia looked at the white light and muttered, "The beast's advancement is much different from others. Each time, its body will be greatly strengthened, unlike us from the flying spirit tribe. That's true, but the pain of cleansing one's essence and meridians isn't something we can handle, Lei Lan added with a smile. Bai Bai then raised his brow, looking at the distant dark canyon with a solemn expression. At the moment it was rather too peaceful. Apart from some faint whistling winds, they heard no other sounds, and the beast's fragrance had already spread far, at least 50 kilometers away. Bai Bai felt ill at ease and couldn't help to glance at Han Li. He had his eyes shut and appeared serene. Bai Bai blinked, and he thought to say something when Han Li opened his eyes, revealing a bright crystalline glint from his eyes. Meanwhile, rustles began to sound from the darkness, as if countless things were flocking in their direction. In that next moment, all of the other three ceased their whispering and watched what was happening. Countless red eyes were glowing through the darkness. A swarm of foot-tall black silhouettes began to pounce forward. Their bodies glowed back, and they moved with great speed as their limbs rustled. This swarm of malevolent creatures were ice spiders. At a glance, the spiders seemed endless, filling the entire canyon in an instant. However, these were the lowest level of ice fiend demons. Since Han Li didn't need to deal with them, Qin Zhao let out a shout and waved her sleeve, releasing a dozen green lights onto the spiders. Several booms later, a dozen 3-meter-tall puppets appeared amongst the spiders. These puppets appeared to be huge lizards. With only faint movements, the lizards began to release beams of green lights from their mouths. The spiders seemed to melt away like evaporating dew as the green light passed them by. The puppets were standing in a line and simply moved their heads as they launched their attacks, preventing the ice spiders from moving forward even a single step. In the blink of an eye, countless piles of dead spiders littered the ground. However, the spiders were truly too great in number. Even with the incisive beams of green light, they eventually began to advance slowly in complete disregard of their lives. Under this unceasing assault, the spirit stones in the puppets began to dwindle in power. Soon, the puppets' beams began to dim in light and could no longer hold the spiders back. As such, the spiders soon broke through the line and approached the puppets. Pooh, pooh. Countless black threads shot out from the spiders and enveloped the puppets thoroughly. The threads then dragged the puppets to the ground, rendering them entirely still. Within the carriage, Qin Zhao was somewhat alarmed, but she merely whispered, "You don't need to take action. Hand over these small things to me." Soon after, the woman flew up in a green ball of light and arrived before the ice spiders in front of the grand formation. The spiders immediately sensed her and they hissed, releasing countless black threads into the air. Qin Zhao's expression sank. Suddenly, a dark green flame emerged from her body. When the black threads touched her, they combusted into smoke. The woman shouted and straightened her arm. A green fire sword appeared in her hand, and she swung down. A huge wave of flames suddenly spread out from the strike. With a huge explosion, a 3-meter-wide trench appeared in front of the spiders. Green flames still burned inside it, turning the spiders that touched it into ash in just a moment. Qin Zhao faintly smiled at the sight, and just as she thought to expand the trench, furious cries sounded from the distance, followed by the appearance of several 3-meter-tall bodies. Under closer examination, the woman's expression changed. The huge figures were giant four-headed spiders. Each one was covered in black fur with sharp fangs from each of their mouths, each of them roaring. Qin Zhao raised her brow and bluntly waved her fire sword at them. In that instant, a series of black light roamed across their bodies, creating a pair of black cicada wings. With a tremble, their wings took them into the air. Qin Zhao's relaxed expression instantly changed when she saw this. When Lei Lan saw this, she frowned and turned to Bai Bai, saying, "These will be troublesome. I'll lend older sister Qin a hand." With that said, golden light flashed from her body, and she flew out of the carriage. But Bai Bai raised his hand to stop Lei Lan and forced a smile, saying, "Junior Martial Sister Lei, you don't need to help Lady Qin. We have other things to deal with." Lei Lan was startled and looked off in the direction Bai Bai was pointing. At another edge of the darkness, a large swarm of demon wolves was silently approaching. From a glance, one could only see their fur. Their true number was unknown. Meanwhile, cries sounded from a different direction. Lei Lan looked over and saw black silhouettes moving. They were a large group of 3-meter-tall ice apes. Their fur was extremely long and somewhat curled, but they held wood or stone clubs in hand. They also had menacing fangs hanging from their mouths. "I'll deal with the wolves. I'll leave the ice apes over to Senior Marshal Brother Bai." Lei Lan gave a quick response before hurrying off in a silver bolt of lightning. Thunder clapped above wolves as a dozen bolts of lightning struck down. The silver lightning swept past the wolves, leaving them scorched and trembling on the ground. Bai Bai shook his head and gave Han Li a salute before flying off in a streak of light. A short moment later, the apes became restless, and a ball of golden light erupted from the sky. Countless golden threads spread downward. Miserable screams echoed. Golden light flashed across the apes, piercing holes through them and spilling blood across the ground. The wolves and apes were only low-grade demons and didn't prove a match to the two. But in a swarm, there were bound to be a few capable mid-grade demons. They could only slowly deal with them. Han Li watched this from the spirit carriage, and his expression stirred. He pondered whether the three should return, and he would deal with these demons using the might of the Grand Formation. But at that moment, a peculiar sound rang through the air, signaling that something has arrived. Blue light flashed from his eyes, and he attentively looked in the distance, and his expression sank. He saw over 100 ice fiends of varying form flying through the air. Their bodies were a sparkling black and ranged from 30 meters to only a foot in size. From their aura, they appeared to be mid-grade demons. These demons appeared excited and were rushing over to the Grand Formation, clearly attracted by the leopard Kirin beast's scent. Han Li coldly chuckled and stood motionlessly in place. The demons quickly arrived before the Grand Formation, and they strangely buzzed as they rushed into the formation towards the small beast at its center. Han Li only took action when he saw nearly half of the flying ice demons enter the formation. He flipped his hand to produce a 3-inch large sparkling scarlet formation flag. He immersed the flag with the entirety of his magic power and quickly pointed downward. A crackle sound as a beam of red light disappeared into the spell formation. A huge rumbling sounded as the 10 pillars at the edge of the spell formation trembled. Once the talisman characters appeared, mists of red light began to gather around the formation and completely envelop the ice fiends. In their fright, the demons either spat out icy white winds or spread out their wings to summon black snow and hail. Letter 1d627, letter 1d633, letter 1d626, letter 212f, letter 1d4cc, letter 1d626, letter 1d4b8, letter 1d630, letter 1d4c2. But regardless of their abilities, when red light swept past them, they turned to ash, melting away as if they were thawing ice. In the blink of an eye, the demons inside the spell formation vanished, leaving only clouds of ice fiend chi lingering in the air. The remaining demons outside the spell formation were alarmed. There were a few that didn't want to leave because of the scent and lingered outside the formation, but those that were smarter quickly took off. Han Li raised his brow and opened his mouth, spitting out a ball of azure light that contained a small azure cauldron. The cauldron spun in the air and pulsed with light, expanding to 3 meters in size. A bang sounded as Han Li slapped his palm on top of the cauldron. The cauldron droned, instantly shooting its lid into the air. A swarm of azure threads shot out from it and strangely vanished into space itself. A short moment later, space warped near the ice fiend demon lingering outside the formation, and countless azure threads shot out in every direction. The ice demons were skewered. Even those that fled earlier weren't able to escape the threads. Once the threads faded away, the corpses fell to the ground in fragments. With Han Li's increase in cultivation, the might of the Heaven Void Cauldron was also vastly different. The others also used their various abilities to slay the mid-grade demons, and eventually repelled the swarm of demons. Lei Lan and Qin Zhao returned to the carriage and clicked their tongues in wonder. I didn't expect there were so many demons in the Ice Fiend territory. Who knows what else is hiding? In a flash of golden light, Bai Bai returned to the carriage. He chuckled and slowly said, "An area this large is bound to conceal much. However, these were only the nearby demons. Soon, demons from farther away will come. There may be a few high-grade demons among them." When Han Li heard this, he remained calm. Not long after, howls sounded from all around them. Various demons had appeared again and were rushing the formation. This time, Han Li didn't have the other 3 head out. Instead, he activated the restrictions of the Grand Formation. Any of the demons that entered the formation were given a painful death, turning to ash as red mist swept past them. Time slowly passed as they were besieged by waves of demons, and half a day passed. During this time, only 1 high-grade demon appeared. However, Han Li decisively activated the Grand Oriate Sword Formation and made short work of it. After this, no other powerful demons had appeared for some time. Han Li and the others were happy to spend time peacefully. 6 hours later, when the leopard Kirin beast's scent had begun to wane, and a murder of strange crows was charging into the spell formation, the crows suddenly fled without warning. Just as Han Li observed this, he heard heavy footsteps thud from a distance away. Each step caused the ground to shake, and it was slowly growing closer. Lei Lan and the others glanced at each other with astonishment. As for Han Li, he narrowed his eyes as blue light flickered from them. A short moment later, a kilometer-tall dark green colossus walked out from the darkness. As soon as it could be seen, Bai Bai gravely shouted, "A green wood demon! It's a green wood demon!" The demon before them was quite peculiar. Its huge figure was half man, half deer. Its surface appeared emerald green as if it were chopped out of a tree, and the green leaves and flowers growing on top of it also appeared quite comical. However, the demon was holding a pair of huge hammers the size of hills, stifling any laughter about its appearance. Bai Bai quickly glanced at Han Li and said, "No matter. Although it may be large and powerful, the green wood demon, but its body is cumbersome. So long as we don't let it strike with its weapons, it is no threat." However, the three only saw Han Li's sullen expression. This was the first time he showed such an expression since the beginning of the demon assault. "Brother Han Yu." When the others saw this, they were bewildered. After some silence, Han Li said, "If it were only this demon, it would be easily dealt with, but the demon standing on its head might be a problem." "There's another one." Frightened, the others quickly looked on top of the giant's head. Under closer examination, they eventually made out another demon. It was only 2 feet tall, appearing to be a long-haired dwarf with green robes. He held a cane in one hand and stood motionlessly on top of the giant. Most of his body was concealed by vegetation, so it was no wonder he wasn't easily discovered. When the demon saw Han Li and the others had discovered him, the dwarf hadn't opened his eyes and arrogantly said, "I know you are from the Flying Spirit tribe and have some abilities. However, you are no match for me at your level of cultivation. So long as you obediently hand over the evolving spirit beast to me, I will immediately leave. Otherwise, you will die here." Lei Lan and the others looked at each other in dismay at his arrogant tone and uncertain abilities. Han Li's eyes flickered, but when he saw the opponent's cultivation, he couldn't help but sigh. It was no wonder he spoke so arrogantly. To control a high-grade demon like the Greenwood demon, he had the fearsome cultivation of a mid-spatial tempering stage. Ordinary Flying Spirit tribe holy disciples wouldn't prove a match against him. But to Han Li, so long as he didn't have any heaven-defying abilities, he wouldn't be a strong match against Han Li. Too lazy to respond, Han Li held his arms behind his back and looked at him with a mysterious smile. Bai Bai and the others felt apprehensive, but they tactfully kept quiet as Han Li was their leader. When the dwarf saw this, he was enraged and opened his white eyes. He coldly said, "Since you choose death, allow me to take you there." The dwarf tapped his cane on the giant below him. The demon let out a bellowing roar and stepped toward the grand formation in large steps. Han Li coldly watched as the huge demon took a few steps forward, betraying no emotion from his face. Only a bit closer, and the green wood demon would enter the range of his aureate sword formation. He would release it without reserve and slay both demons in a single attack. At that moment, red light flashed from the distant sky, followed by a howling cry. 3 balls of blood light appeared from the dark and streaked in their direction. When the dwarf saw this, his expression vastly changed. He tapped his cane on the wood demon and turned his head to face the crimson streaks. A trace of astonishment appeared on his face. After several thuds sound, the green wood demon stopped right outside the aureate sword formation. Han Li frowned, but when he saw this new development, he also turned to look at the distance. The other 3 appeared apprehensive at the new demons that appeared. The 3 crimson streaks were incredibly fast, traveling near them at lightning speed. The light faded away to reveal 3-foot-tall silhouettes. These small people had delicate faces and one couldn't make out their age, but they wore peculiar red armor. Dense talisman characters appeared on the surface of their faces. Their skin gleamed scarlet, and they smelled of rotting blood. The 3 emotionlessly swept their gaze around them before setting their glowing eyes on Han Li. Han Li narrowed his eyes and felt an icy chill spread across his body. It was as if 3 vipers were staring at him. When the demon saw the silhouettes, his complexion paled and his eyes were filled with awe. Blood puppets. They're the puppet incarnations of Lord Daizu. Blood puppets, Daizu. Han Li's mind quickly stirred, but he found the name unfamiliar. The three small figures stared at Han Li for a long while before a harsh expression appeared on their faces. They opened their mouths and released three blood-red beams at Han Li. Although Han Li was already prepared, furious alarm still ranged through his mind as the attack came with no warning. He instantly reacted, raising his hand and summoning a gray mist in front of him. At that same time, black chi burst from his body to create a simple black armor. Three muffled pops sounded. The three beams of bloodlight was only stalled by the divine essence effused light for a moment before piercing through and striking Han Li's baleful armor. The bloodlight swayed as it struck, gradually dimming to reveal three bowl-sized holes through the armor and directly striking his chest. Lei Lan and the others turned bloodlessly pale when they saw this, but what happened next left them even more dumbstruck. Thunder rang from Han Li's chest and boomed, revealing bloodlight clashing against gold and silver lightning and canceling each other out. The attack was blocked in the end by Han Li's lightning robes. Even so, Han Li was still greatly frightened, and his face suddenly sank. He coldly snorted and released clouds of black chi, instantly mending the three large holes in his baleful armor. If his baleful armor hadn't scattered the power of the three beams of bloodlight, he feared his lightning robes wouldn't have been able to block it. Seeing that their attacks didn't succeed, the three blood puppets hadn't betrayed any emotion. Light simply flickered from their back as pairs of blood-red wings unfolded, and they immediately vanished. Han Li felt his heart tremble. Before he could react, the nearby space fluctuated and the three silhouettes flickered into existence. Their hands blurred, slicing at the air with a long crimson saber in each hand. Three bright red crescents streaked out from the swords towards Han Li, completely ignoring any of the others. As the puppets had a thread of their master's spiritual sense within them, it determined that the only threat present was Han Li, and that the others would collapse at the first blow. Han Li let out a furious shout and the wings on his back shook. With a clap of thunder, he disappeared. A short moment later, he reappeared 60 meters away in a flash of azure-white lightning. At nearly the same time, three crimson lights flashed in his direction. The three small figures reappeared and performed seemingly the same attack, but this time, their sabers transformed into a barrage of countless blood streaks surrounding him. With a face as cold as ice, golden light flashed from Han Li's body to reveal a layer of sparkling golden scales on his flesh. At that same time, he let out a huge shout, striking out with his black and white palms. In the blink of an eye, they turned into intertwining black-white palm projections. Metallic clangs and screeches sounded as a result. The barrage of crimson streaks struck Han Li's palm, but they wailed and scattered as if repelled by an immense force. The three puppets felt pushback from the huge force through their blades, and were each pushed back 10 meters. Crimson light wildly flickered from their bodies before they regained their balance, but when they raised their heads, they were stunned. Han Li had vanished from his original location. In an instant, Han Li had blinked back to his original location on the spirit carriage. The three figures eventually lowered their heads and found them, but Han Li simply sneered. With his hands quickly forming an incantation gesture, he began to chant. The nearby space let out a loud, clear cry as golden threads began to flicker and shine, surrounding the three blood puppets tightly. This was the grand Oriate sword formation Han Li originally placed down. The might of the sword formation vastly increased along with his cultivation. The originally slow sword threads were now surging with greater speed. However, they still definitely couldn't be considered very fast. When the three blood puppets saw this, their eyes roiled and their wings stirred as they strangely vanished from the air. It appeared they wanted to employ a secret technique and escape the sword formation. However, something as mysterious as the Oriate sword formation wasn't about to let them escape. Three drones sounded from the edge of the formation, where 100 golden threads lashed out. Crimson light immediately appeared, and the three silhouettes were forced to appear. The three puppets were instantly shredded into countless pieces as if they were destroyed. Even the dwarf was left dumbstruck by the scene. The dwarf quickly realized something, and immediately had the wood demon below him to slowly retreat. As an indigenous creature of the earth abyss, the dwarf understood how fearsome the blood puppets were. He couldn't prove a match against the combined forces of the three blood puppets, so he abandoned any thoughts of laying hands on the leopard Kirin beast. But at that moment, a strange scene appeared from the sword formation. It appeared the shredded fragments of the crimson puppet were glowing and turning into blood drops. They then gathered together to form three fist-sized balls of blood, filling the air with their rotten scent. As soon as they appeared, they spun and gradually turned back into their blood puppet form. Han Li wasn't surprised by this, and simply pointed at the center of his sword formation with an odd expression. A rustle sounded, and a silver firebird flew out from the ground. As it approached the puppets with a flicker, it exploded, separating into 3 bowl-sized balls of silver flame. With a muffled boom, the silver flames struck the blood balls heads one. The silver flame surged high and completely enveloped the blood balls. As the flames burned, a scorched scent filled the air, followed by miserable screams. The balls of silver flames wildly knocked against the edges of the sword formation, like a headless fly. Although Han Li was watching this expressionlessly, he was inwardly shocked. He had a great understanding of the might of his spirit engulfing flames. When an ember of it caught on his opponent, they should turn to ash in an instant. However, these blood puppets were able to endure. However, the flame's overbearing power became clear to see, as the blood balls were soon thoroughly burned away. With their blood turning to ash, the puppets could no longer reform. Han Li waved his hand. The balls of silver flames fused back into one, returned to him as a firebird, and vanished into his sleeve. His expression stirred as if he sensed something, and looked to the side. He saw that the huge green wood demon had unknowingly retreated a kilometer away. When the dwarf saw that Han Li was looking at him, he felt his heart pound and whistled without another thought. The silent wood demon suddenly glowed with green light, and began to run away with large steps without any regard to stealth. As a colossus, the demon blurred several times before disappearing into the darkness. "You want to leave," Han Li muttered. He then opened his mouth and summoned a small cauldron glowing with azure light. At that moment, a weak beast howl sounded from underneath the spirit carriage. When Han Li heard this, he was overjoyed, but he looked to the distant wood demon with some hesitation before taking back the heaven-void cauldron back into his stomach. Afterwards, his figure blurred and he appeared on top of the spirit carriage. A short moment later, he nimbly stepped onto the ground and stood next to his spirit beast, which was still wrapped in white light. At that moment, the fragrance being emitted had grown much dimmer. Through his spiritual sense connection with the beast, he already sensed that its advancement was on the verge of completion. He now had another source of strength. He took a deep breath and stretched his hand forward into the white light, putting the leopard Kirin beast within it. At that same moment, a wave of pure spiritual energy entered the small beast's body. Azure light brightly shined from Han Li's body, and his expression turned grave. The other 3 in the spirit carriage all let out a long sigh, seeing that matters had concluded. They looked at each other with a face of deep relief. What shocked Lei Lan and the others the most was how Han Li faced 2 powerful enemies, slaying one with ease and sending the other running away in fright. The 3 hadn't known that the blood puppets were actually as strong as low-grade Great Spirit generals, or they would have been even more shocked. As for the other demons, they no longer came. Han Li was simply spending this time assisting his spirit beast in the last step of its advancement, while Lei Lan and company recovered their strength in the spirit carriage. 2 hours later, white light wildly flashed from the ground, and a roar crossing between a dragon and a tiger sounded out. As for Han Li, who stretched his hand through the light, his expression changed, and his figure blurred as he shot away in a chain of afterimages. Immediately after, a golden figure flew out from the white light. It spun in the air and revealed a 30-meter-long phantom. Its body sparkled gold from the scales covering its body. It was a golden Kirin beast. Although the Kirin beast was only a phantom, when it raised its head, it let out a majestic roar, releasing an astonishing pressure into the air. Even Han Li, who originally stood firm, couldn't help but take a step back with a changed expression. However, the phantom was short-lived as it slowly faded away, and the small beast emerged from the white light underneath. As of current, the leopard Kirin beast didn't look much different than it did before, but there were now golden stripes on its fur, and its eyes shimmered with sparkling silver. In a blur, the leopard Kirin beast vanished from its original location. At that same moment, Han Li felt a slight weight on his chest and something quite soft. He lowered his head to find that the newly advanced demon had leaped on top of him. It beamed at him with its enchanting eyes and licked the back of his hand with its pink tongue. Han Li wordlessly swept his spiritual sense past the small beast, and joy soon lit up on his face. As expected, the small beast succeeded in its advancement, and now possessed deity transformation cultivation. As for the beast's innate abilities and its Kirin bloodline, It proved far stronger than other beasts of the same cultivation, and would prove to be a rare helper. The small beast yawned inside Han Li's embrace, appearing quite tired. Its recent advancement had been quite difficult for it, and it needed to quickly rest. With a flip of his hand, Han Li produced a red medicine pill in his hand and put it in its mouth before lightly patting it. Then in an azure flash, the beast vanished back into his storage bracelet where it soundly slept. The three in the spirit carriage unconsciously glanced at each other when they saw the Kirin phantom and wore odd expressions. Although the flying spirit tribe believed in the true spirit of birds, Kirins and other existences were held in reverence by the other tribes as they were true spirit-level existences. They were truly shocked that Han Li's spirit beast had the bloodline of a Kirin true spirit. At that moment, Han Li's expression stirred and he soared into the air as an azure streak. Rainbow streaks flew out from the ground as the formation flags and plates in the surrounding area flew up. With all the formation tools in his sleeve, the 10 crimson pillars emerging from the ground vanished and completely disappeared. In an azure flash, Han Li appeared inside the spirit carriage and calmly said, "We don't have much time. Let's head to the 3rd level as quickly as we can." Bai Bai and company raised no objections, all nodding in agreement. As for the triangular spirit carriage, Han Li tapped his foot on its floor, commanding it to streak forward. With several white flashes, the carriage blurred and vanished into the darkness. In the deepest level of the earth abyss, when the 3 blood puppets were devoured by the spirit engulfing flames, a crimson-robed person sitting in a hidden room in the mountain suddenly sensed something. He opened his eyes and let out a yelp. With a harsh expression, a trace of malice appeared from his eyes. "My blood puppets are exterminated along with my threads of spiritual sense. How can this be? Could it be that others have involved themselves with my bounty?" The man stroked his chin and muttered, "No matter. I fear it'll be too late to send more puppets. I won't let a meager spirit general-grade existence have me go to the upper levels." A short while later, he shook his sleeve and released a ball. It spun in the air as it floated in front of him. He formed an incantation gesture and pointed at the ball with his free hand. It quickly surged with crimson light and began to softly hum. Eventually, a cold woman's voice spoke. "Daizu, why did you contact me?" The voice spoke without a trace of politeness. I wish to perform a trade with fellow Taoist Mu Qing." The crimson-robed man chuckled. "What is it?" the woman said with surprise. "It's nothing," the man casually said. "I want to borrow your subordinates, the high great spirit general grade bloodworm." The woman astonishedly asked, "The bloodworm? What are you doing with them? I need them to find me blood feed for the sacrifice." The man said, "I need them to exterminate a few spirit general grade flying spirit tribe beings. They're at the 2nd level, so it's too late for me to personally deal with them. There is no teleportation formation that can send me there, so I can only rely on you." After some silence, the woman snorted and indifferently said, "Why do you need the bloodworm for a few spirit generals? I don't care what you're planning to do with my bloodworm, but it'll be fine if you give me that spirit concealing wood. Otherwise, consider the matter null." The man calmly said, "That's fine, but I do have one request. I want the soul of the flying spirit tribe beings. After you kill them, have the bloodworm deliver them to me." "That is a small matter. Send their appearances and locations over to me," the woman said with a softer tone. "Of course, it'll just be a moment." The man extended his finger to the pearl and gently closed his eyes, sending the information with his spiritual sense. A short moment later, the man withdrew his fingers and opened his eyes. "I have you their most recent location. You should be able to easily find them with your bloodworm. I will be awaiting good news." As they are only spirit general existences, it won't take up much time, but if your information isn't accurate— The woman then coldly laughed with a deep tone. "If it isn't accurate, Fairy Mew can cancel the trade," the man said with a smile. With his abilities, he naturally wouldn't mistake the cultivation of spirit general grade beings. "Since you are certain, then so be it. I will directly send the blood worm to the 2nd floor. You should receive news in 3 days, the woman calmly said. Then with a red flash from the ball, the connection was severed. When the man saw this, he appeared satisfied rather than anger. He withdrew the ball and muttered, "With the high great spirit general grade bloodworm, they shouldn't fake. If they truly fail, then it shows that those old fellows from the flying spirit tribe have truly infiltrated the earth abyss. It is better to deal with this carefully." The man sat in his chair and quickly drifted off to sleep. On the third level of the earth abyss, in a large hall constructed from black wood, there was a vague silhouette that sat on top of a 3-meter large golden flower. They motionlessly held their chin in hand. Sitting not far away from them were 2 rows of black figures of varying heights. There were 16 of them. A short moment later, the black figure sitting on the flower raised their hand, releasing a green streak, quickly disappearing into the air. A short moment later, a rumbling thunder sounded from the outside. Crimson light flashed from the hall gates, and a hazy blood mist shot inside. The blood mist vanished to reveal a demon with a worm's head and a human's body. It respectfully bowed to the figure sitting on the golden flower and hoarsely spoke, "May I ask what Master has called Zudu for?" The black silhouette spoke with a cold woman's voice. "Zudu, you'll temporarily give up on collecting blood feed and will go to the second floor." She had the same voice as Mu Qing, the woman who spoke with eccentric Dai Zhu. "As the Master commands." The worm-headed demon had an incredibly red head, and its eyes contained indescribable savagery, but it spoke to the black figure with the utmost respect. The woman waved her hand and tossed a black bamboo tube at him. "There are several spirit general-grade flying spirit tribe beings on the second floor. Teleport over, kill them, and deliver their souls to eccentric Zhu. Those are their last known locations and their appearances. Take note that the flying spirit tribe beings might be odd. If there is something amiss, quickly report it back to me. Move quickly." "As you bid." The worm-headed demon accepted the tube and blurred, shooting out in a blood mist. It flickered several times before disappearing. The woman glanced at the hall gates for a moment and withdrew her gaze. With a cold tone, she said, "All right, tell me about the progress with the blood feed captured on the various levels. The next blood sacrifice will occur soon. Hai Zhuo, it's your turn." A tall silhouette stood up and said, "The fourth level's 4-winged serpents and the bright cloud scorpion are the largest blood feeds and have been completely captured. Only the 3-eyed gray mouse and several other beasts are hiding in Black Crow Mountain. We temporarily can't reach them." On the second level of the earth abyss, there were 4 faint white-winged figures with disheveled hair. They were fighting against black meter-long scorpions as they were moving away. Although the scorpions didn't have any wings, they were able to fly through the air with swift movements and could spit acid from their mouths. Over an hour later, one of the flying spirit tribe resolved themselves and employed much of their magic power to cast a formidable technique, releasing balls of sparkling blue flames and turning 4 of the surrounding black scorpions into ashes. Finally, the black scorpions had reluctantly retreated. The 4 flying spirit tribe beings let out a long sigh and felt at ease. But before they could say anything, light flashed from the distant sky and a bloody mist rolled through. The blood mist was silent and was as fast as a ghost. With several flickers, it drew near the 4 flying spirit tribe beings and circled around them several times. The 4 flying spirit tribe holy disciples were alarmed and hastily assumed a guarded posture. The blood mist coldly snorted and looked at them with crazed eyes. After its gaze passed the holy disciples, they heard an icy hoarse voice. "Although you aren't the ones I'm looking for, you're still out of luck to have come across me." With that said, thunder rang from the blood mist and the nearby sky turned blood red. Bloody clouds began to strangely form and roil in the sky. "No, run, it's heavenly blood lightning." When one of 4 holy disciples saw this, their expression turned bloodlessly pale and he loudly shouted. Then he flew off in a yellow streak in panic. When the other 3 heard this, they scattered in fright and quickly flew off as well. But in that instant, thunder clapped in the air and 4 blood-red lightning bolts flashed down from the sky, strangely bending in different directions before they disappeared from sight. A moment later, the blood-red lightning appeared above the 4 fleeing holy disciples and struck down. 4 miserable screams sounded, and the streaks of light were instantly dispersed by the lightning. The corpses of the disciples wildly flickered in the lightning before they turned to ash. Their protective treasures and light didn't pose the slightest resistance. The blood mist let out a howl of insane laughter, and in a flash of bright blood light, the mist shot off into the distance, soon to disappear without a trace. An unknown distance away, Han Li took a shallow breath and looked in front of him. 7 ill-intentioned holy disciples surrounded them, and Han Li asked, "Aren't you fellow Taoists going to find the infernal flame fruit? Why are you blocking us?" "Our Tianpeng race and yours has no grudges," Bai Bai sullenly said at the side. His face appeared calm. The group of people had both dark wings and dark skin. A taller man among them held his hands behind his back and arrogantly said to Han Li, "There truly are no disputes between our races, but the Chiron and several other powerful branches have secretly issued a reward. So long as you perish, we'll acquire very significant benefits. If we hadn't encountered you, we wouldn't go looking for you either. But now that we've met, the Black Spirit race won't refuse the opportunity. Black Spirit holy disciples surrounding Han Li's group all looked at them without emotion. This came as no surprise. The Black Spirit race wasn't among the top branches in the tribe, but they were in the upper half, far beyond the weaker branches like the Tian Peng. A reward, Han Li frowned, finding this somewhat surprising. That's all to be said. Now your souls won't be confused in the afterlife, so die. Their leader was unwilling to speak any further and waved his hand with a hostile expression. When the other Black Spirit race disciples saw this, they opened their mouths and spat out a black feather. The feather was only an inch initially, but when they slapped their hands together, the feathers instantly expanded to a foot long. The feather glowed black and had talisman characters roaming across them. The 6 Black Spirit disciples surrounding them all acted together, waving the feather to release waves of black flames from them and enveloping him from every side. Boom! The black flames turned into a huge flame barrier and trapped the 4 inside. These Black Spirit disciples were ruthless in their attack and planned to kill the lot of them in a single strike. As for Green Knight Race's Xianxia, they didn't care enough to spare her. When Lei Lan saw the flames, her expression vastly changed, and silver lightning rose from her body to create a protective barrier for herself. Then, she shook the golden gourd on her necklace, releasing thin silver lightning to turn her lightning purple, producing an astonishing pressure. When all of this was done, Lei Lan quickly spoke to Han Li with a voice transmission. "Brother Han, this is the Black Spirit race's Golden Crow Spirit Fire. It is fearsome as it can absorb our magic power and cultivation. We cannot allow it to catch onto our bodies." Bai Bai and Xianxia both appeared astonished and quickly released their defenses. A brilliant flash of golden light and strands of green light from dark Jade badge were released to block the black flames. Golden Crow Spirit Fire, how interesting, Han Li smiled, seemingly taking no action. Then rainbow flames appeared from his body. Even as powerful as they were, when the black flames touched the rainbow flames, they began to crackle with muffled thunder. A violent reaction occurred similar to icy water and boiling oil. The Black Spirit disciples were stunned. Their leader narrowed his eyes and shouted, "Increase the flame's power. We have more people. Even if this person has the ability to temporarily block the flames, he can't hold out much longer." The others promptly acknowledged the order and waved their feathers even quicker. Each of them even produced a large black crow projection from their backs. Most of them appeared vague, but those that were clearer still pulsed dimly, clearly showing that they were unstable. When the true spirit projections appeared, the black feathers might greatly increased and the flames turned pitch black. As the flames swept through the air, they faintly warped the air and summoned a soft crow's cry. The flames were clearly being used to the extent of their power. Against such might, the defenses of the other 3 were reaching their limits. They hastily brandished their treasures in alarm as if they couldn't hold out much longer. However, Han Li's rainbow flames seemed to be endless. As the might of the black flames increased, the rainbow flames surged a meter high and kept the black flames at a distance. At that moment, the Black Spirit disciples' expressions turned unsightly. But before they could say anything, Han Li narrowed his eyes and glanced at the others who were struggling against the flame. He promptly spat out a ball of silver flame and turned into a silver firebird in a crackle. As soon as the silver firebird appeared, it stared at the black flames and let out a cheerful cry. It spread its wings and expanded several times in size, turning a meter wide. Without waiting for Han Li's command, the silver flames flew out to the black flames. Black and flames silently roiled together, and soon, the firebird's body turned into a magnet and absorbed the black flames towards itself. The spirit engulfing flame was originally a fusion of other powerful flames. Furthermore, with the instinct it possesses, it is quite adept at devouring different flames. Although the Golden Crow flames they used weren't the Golden Crow true spirit flames that could melt space and burn earth, with the support of the Golden Crow feather, they could use a sliver of the Golden Crow's divine flame. It was something the spirit engulfing flames happily enjoyed consuming. Thus, when the bird formed from the spirit engulfing flames entered the fire, it devoured them without reserve, and within the span of a few breaths, the bird circled around the black flames and devoured them entirely. All of the Black Spirit disciples were left dumbstruck. Lei Lan and the others were overjoyed. Furious, the Black Spirit leader shouted, "Who are you?" The Tianping race doesn't have such techniques. I don't have to answer you, Han Li lazily said. He spread his wings and vanished in a bolt of azure-white lightning. But as someone with rich battle experience, the Black Spirit leader quickly reacted, shaking one of his sleeves and forming an incantation gesture with his other hand. Suddenly, a net of black threads shot out of his sleeve, but it wasn't aimed at Han Li. Rather, it covered himself. In the blink of an eye, a thin black cloth thoroughly covered him. As for his other hand, he summoned 3 cup-sized balls of black lightning to circle around outside. In a clap of lightning, Han Li appeared next to the black cloth. 3 booms sounded as the black lightning flashed and struck Han Li. However, a black armor had already emerged around him. Despite having scattered away half of his armor, the lightning hadn't done any damage to him. Rather, Han Li remained expressionless as golden light flashed from his body, revealing a layer of golden scales underneath. Then, his hand became blurred as it stretched out faster than sound with his fingers aimed at the Black Spirit leader's vitals. Zap! The golden lightning from his fingers tore through the black cloth like paper. The Black Spirit leader felt a chill run down his back as the golden hand pierced his chest. Strangely enough, blood didn't drip down Han Li's arm. The Black Spirit leader wore an expression of disbelief. He shouted and grabbed the arm in his chest. A cold glint then flashed from Han Li's eyes, and golden light brightly shined from his arm. A meter-long sword then strangely appeared from his hand. A flash of sword light flickered, followed by a metallic ring. Not only did the Black Spirit leader's arm fall off, but his body had been sliced in 2 by the sword light. Only a crystal core and a ball of green flames appeared from the bisected body. His soul had been destroyed by the sword light. The other Black Spirit holy disciples turned pale with fright. Their leader was a high spirit general grade being. In regards to cultivation and abilities, he was unrivaled. How could the Tianping holy disciples slay him in a single strike? Soon, 4 of the Black Spirit holy disciples let out furious shouts, and they aggressively dived towards Han Li in the form of large black crows. As for the remaining 2, they wordlessly exchanged a glance and withdrew their feathers, immediately taking off to the distance in black streaks of light. Han Li smirked, and thunder rang from his back as he disappeared in a flash of lightning. The large black birds were startled by this and couldn't help but stop. In that brief delay, azure light flashed, and the image of a winged figure appeared underneath one of the black crows. Before the crow could take action, the figure's arm moved and released a glaring flash of golden light. The crow was startled, but its body immediately felt a chill before it was split into 2. The 2 corpse halves rained blood into the air as it fell. The figure underneath blurred and strangely vanished once again. Soon after, it appeared near another golden crow and waved its hand, releasing another streak of sword light. The crow was similarly cut down faster than the speed of sound. Its iron-like feathers weren't able to stop the attack in the slightest. As such, Han Li's figure continued to flicker with ghost-like agility several more times, before he clearly stopped in midair. The remaining 4 Black Spirit disciples were cleanly massacred. However, Han Li didn't stop there. He glanced at the 2 Black Spirit disciples 100 meters away and expressionlessly spread his wings, tearing through the air in a white streak. Air shrieked as he cut through it. With formidable speed, he only traveled for 30 meters before blurring and disappearing into a thin white line. The line then strangely wrapped and disappeared into space. Behind one of the desperately fleeing Black Spirit disciples, a white azure line appeared along with a fluctuation of space. In a blur, the line pierced through their body, quickly circled around it, and released a golden flash. By the time the Black Spirit disciple was separated into 8 pieces, the white line wrapped and disappeared once more. Soon, azure-white light brightly flashed from above the remaining Black Spirit tribe disciples. In a blur, Han Li came into full view. His hand silently blurred, turning the small golden sword in his hand into dense sword light. In a flicker of golden sword light, it cleaved into the head of the being below. Horrified, the Black Spirit disciple simply folded his wings and slapped the top of his head. As black light flashed from his wings, their feathers turned into countless arrows, filling the air in the dense barrage. Then, a black wooden shield appeared from his skull and turned into a black cloud as it faced the golden sword light. Regardless, the shield was unable to withstand the incisiveness of his bamboo cloudswarm sword. Golden light flashed, and the black cloud was split into 2 along with the Black Spirit disciple's body. As for the black feather arrows, they were blocked in midair by a gray mist. When the gray light swept past them, the arrows disappeared, leaving Han Li completely unharmed. Han Li looked at the corpses with a raised brow, as if something came to mind, and he reached out to them. With a rustle, a foot-long black feather flew out from one of the corpses and into his hand. Han Li stroked the feather in his hand as he observed them. The pitch-black feather glowed and traces of gold faintly shined from them. With a slight shake, black talisman characters appeared from them and they turned into balls of black flame, releasing a scorched scent into the air. Han Li revealed interest, and black light flashed from his hand. As for the corpses, they were each given a fireball and turned to ash. Han Li circled the air at a low height, collecting all of the black feathers from the corpses and took them into his hand. In an azure flash, Han Li returned to the others in a fierce streak. "Let's continue," Han Li said as if nothing had happened. Lei Lan and the others had pale complexions, but they obediently nodded nonetheless. Half a day later, Han Li arrived in the air of an unfamiliar land. Not far from him was a short, dense forest. Most of the trees in the forest were only a bit over 10 meters tall, but their leaves were a sickly yellow and released a putrid scent. When the party stopped at the edge of the dense forest, Han Li stood in front and silently observed the forest with a sullen expression. Bai Bai and the others didn't know what he was thinking. They simply stood 10 meters behind him, not daring to stand at his side. They all viewed Han Li with traces of awe. To tell the truth, ever since Han Li easily killed the 7 Black Spirit Holy Disciples, they realized how truly powerful Han Li was. Perhaps even the legendary 7-pass race's Ao Qing and the Nan Long race's Fei, he couldn't rival him. Therefore, as they continued on their way, Lei Lan and the others spoke to Han Li with an unconscious tone of reverence, as if Han Li was one of their clan's seniors. With a powerful companion like Han Li, they shouldn't have much trouble passing the trial. Han Li eventually said with a soft voice, "If I'm correct, this is the Rotten Leaf Forest. It is the place most concentrated with filthy chi on the 2nd level. Our luck is good to have come here. Although our chances aren't high, we can acquire infernal flame fruits here. Do you plan on spending some time to find them here, or will you rush to the myriad vine path?" The three hesitantly exchanged a glance and Bai Bai respectfully replied, "Brother Han, the Rotten Leaf Forest isn't very large. Although our spiritual senses are restricted, we'll be able to search through it in only half a day." Feeling that there was no problem, Han Li nodded and said, "Oh, I understand. Half a day's time isn't much. We'll stop here for the time being." Lei Lan and the others were happy to hear this. If they could find the infernal flame fruits here, they wouldn't have to risk looking for them in the 3rd level. The three had a quick discussion, and Qin Zhao shook her sleeve, summoning a dozen more lizard puppets. She had them spread out to various parts of the rest before disappearing. LL and Bai Bai were also making their own preparations. Lei Lan raised her head and summoned a white jade box. She muttered to it a moment, and its lid flew off to reveal tens of inch-long butterflies. They flickered with silver light and flew off. Bai Bai's wings trembled, and a dozen small golden snakes shot out from his body. They burrowed into the ground with a flicker. Following that, the three sat down cross-legged in the air, controlling their puppets and insects to search through the forest. Han Li floated motionlessly in the air, completely separating himself from the matter. Time slowly passed by. Hours later, Lei Lan and the others searched through most of the forest but to no avail. But after consuming so much spiritual sense in the search, their complexions had turned faintly pale. Han Li held his arms behind his back and he frowned. He looked at the horizon with a trace of shock. At that moment, he sensed a powerful aura, but it quickly flickered and disappeared, causing him to doubt his senses. His eyes flickered. Just as he thought to examine this more closely, Lei Lan cried out in alarm and delight. Han Li tossed the matter to the back of his mind and turned around in surprise. "What? Did you truly find the infernal flame fruits?" Lei Lan's beautiful eyes lit up and she excitedly said, "That's right. I've truly found an abyss fruit tree. Furthermore, it has 6 fruits. Most of them seem ripe." Bai Bai's heartbeat quickened. Unable to further control his butterflies, he asked, "Junior Martial Sister Lei, are you sure?" "That's right. The Earth Abyss has many fruits that appear similar to infernal flame fruits. Junior Sister Lei, let me have a look." Qin Zhao spoke with a trembling voice. The woman also was distracted from using her puppets. Lei Lan shook her head and confidently said, "I can't be wrong. Although this is the first time I've seen it, both the tree and fruit are exactly as described." Han Li calmly said, "Very good, let's go verify it. If there is no problem, we won't have to head to the 3rd level." Originally, one could find the fruit on the second level, but the odds weren't very high. It wasn't an impossible outcome. Yes, let's head over, Lei Lan happily answered. She quickly stood up. The other two also stood up. Although they were trying to appear calm, their excitement was betrayed by their eyes. With Lei Lan leading the way, the party flew at full speed. A quarter-hour later, they arrived at a deep part of the forest covered in gray qi. Lei Lan pointed down and said, "It's here. There is a pond nearby and the infernal flame fruits are growing at the side of the pond." Looking at the fog below, Han Li's eyes flashed blue, allowing him to clearly see through it. He shook his sleeve, blowing a strong wind and clearing away most of the fog. The bottom of the foggy area could be faintly seen. There was a pond near it that was about 300 meters wide, and about 30 meters away, there were tens of short trees, but most of them were rotting. A tree with black-green wood had black fist-sized fruits at the very top branch. The fruit's surface was rough and had countless thin cracks. Even odder, it had black qi swirling into it. Han Li narrowed his eyes. The fruit was similar to what was described in records. When the others saw these fruits, they couldn't help but break into a smile. Bye-bye happily said, Junior Marshal Sister Lei was correct. It truly is an infernal flame fruit. Han Li took a deep glance at them and calmly said, "Pick off the ripe fruits. There is enough for us all. If the Kai Rong are lying in ambush for us on the third level, let's have them continue to wait," Lei Lan jokingly said, clearly expressing her happy mood. Xianxia was also cheerful. But when the three planned on descending on grabbing the fruits, Han Li's expression sank, and he raised his arm without turning his hand, pointing at an empty space. A loud crack sounded, and a large rainbow hand appeared in the air. It bluntly swiped down, and crimson light flashed in response, summoning a blood-red hand to meet the attack. A boom sounded as the hands struck one another. Rainbow and blood light intertwined and disappeared in a flash. "Yeah, how interesting," the two different voices shouted. The yelp came from Han Li, who just turned around and saw what happened. The other voice belonged to the tall figure in the ball of blood qi, where the large blood-red hand had appeared. Han Li looked at the blood mist and solemnly said, "Who is your esteemed self, and why are you acting so secretively? It is truly suspicious that a mere spirit general can discover me." The person in the blood qi let out a sinister laugh. Han Li blinked and waved his arm at the other three and sternly commanded, "Head down and collect the infernal flame fruits. I'll deal with this person." "Yes, as you command. Be careful, Brother Han." Although Lei Lan and the others weren't able to see the power of the figure from the blood mist, Han Li's serious appearance caused their hearts to drop. Afterwards, the three flew down towards the fruits. The blood figure glanced at the three and spoke with an odd tone. "What? You're quite interested in those fruit trees. He, although they aren't anything good, they won't be so easily acquired." Han Li's heart trembled and his spiritual sense stirred. He immediately thought to warn the three, but it was already too late. A huge boom sounded. A wave suddenly rose out from the pond, and several pink tentacles emerged from the wave, shooting out a dense barrage of countless icicles. Having already landed at the pond side, they were greatly frightened. As the abyssal flame fruits were behind them, they didn't dare to dodge. With no other option, they unleashed their abilities to block the strike. Lei Lan clapped her hands and unleashed several dense bolts of silver lightning. Bai released a myriad of intertwining golden threads. As for Xianxia, she opened her mouth and spat out a green mist. The three abilities combined smoothly and knocked against the barrage of ice. The deafening force of the impact forced the three several steps back. What resulted from the many attacks was a scorching liquid on the ground and a messy, bloody scene. A painful wail cried out from the pond. Soon after, a wave of ice rose to reveal a brown octopus demon. When it glared at them with its strange green eyes, several tentacles emerged from the water and stretched forward. Each one rose over 30 meters high. On the top of the demon's head grew a dense batch of blue fur. Every time a tentacle swung, the fur released the cracking of torn space. Lei Lan and the others felt their hearts sink. The wounded tentacles were restored to completion after they flickered with blue light. The demon was unleashing its full strength as it regarded the pond's surroundings as its own territory. It raised its head and released a savage roar as its tentacles began to stir, glowing to blue light as they swept towards the holy disciples. As the three were aiming for the abyssal flame fruit, they couldn't afford to step away and could only confront the attacks head-on. Suddenly, rolls of thunder and explosions repeatedly boomed as they sank into battle with the demon. Up above, Han Li glanced at what was happening, but didn't betray the slightest emotion from his face. Although the demon appeared fierce, it would be defeated given enough time. Rather, the main enemy was the blood figure. He would have to deal with him carefully. Han Li stared at the blood mist and asked, "What relation do you have with the blood puppets that appeared before?" "He, blood puppets? You mean eccentric Daizu already sent people over here. They should have slaughtered you. Good, very good. It seems my trip was worth it." The blood figure let out a cold laugh. He clearly had no intention of answering Han Li. Han Li frowned, feeling the swords in his body shake with anticipation. At that moment, a sharp whistle sounded, causing his ears to ring dully. Han Li was startled. Before he realized what happened, a cold wind attacked him. A hair-thin blood needle had attacked from a foot away and was about to bore into his skull. At such a distance, Han Li could hardly react. He simply saw a bloody glint, and the needle devilishly arrived in front of him. The blood figure's lips stirred and formed an evil grin. He had killed countless strong opponents with this ability, and it had yet to fail. Metallic clang sounded. The thin penetrating needle spun through the air, repelled. Han Li's expression vastly changed, and his arm blurred as he stretched it forward, grabbing the blood needle in his hand. The smile on the blood figure's face froze. "Your physical body is able to block my blood river infernal spike." The blood figure spoke with disbelief. Han Li wordlessly retracted his fingers and saw a blood needle jumping in his palm as if it were alive. Layers of rainbow flames were wrapping around his needle. Han Li's face was unsightly and his complexion was ashen. An extreme cold gripped his heart. He was caught in a sneak attack that had truly left him on the verge of death. If it wasn't for a body that was far stronger than demon beasts of the same grade with flesh as durable as magic treasures, anybody else would have died in that strike. Even so, Han Li felt cold sweat cover his body. It had been many years since he felt that he had this close a brush with death. The figure in the blood mist was no less shocked than Han Li. His opponent had a body that was sturdy to untold degrees. He couldn't help but doubt Han Li's identity as a flying spirit tribe being, or as a powerful demon that took the form of one. His expression wavered. At that moment, Han Li slowly raised his hand and a strange light flickered from his eyes. Then he let out a cold snort. The figure in the blood mist felt an attack shake his mind as if it were being pierced with a needle. He was overcome with acute pain. Although the figure's spiritual sense was far stronger than demons of the same grade, his body couldn't help but sway from the pain, nearly bending down as a result. At nearly the same time, his last trace of clarity sensed a wind blow behind him, and he felt a strange coldness approaching his waist. The figure was greatly alarmed and attempted to dodge, but his suffering spiritual sense distracted him, causing his movements to become delayed. He could only let out a shout as blood light brightly shined from his body, summoning a strange azure-scale armor around him. Crackle, a golden light struck his armor. It penetrated only a few inches before it stopped entirely. The gold light faded away to reveal a foot-long sparkling golden sword. It was one of Han Li's bamboo cloudswarm swords. 10 meters behind the blood mist, Han Li stood there with an astonished expression. At the same time he used his soulfright thorn. He used lightning movement to turn to wind and strike at the figure from behind. But he didn't expect that the figure would regain a trace of clarity and summon a strange scale armor that could block his incisive bamboo cloudswarm sword. What kind of armor is so durable? Han Li felt amazed. "You're courting death." In that instant, the figure in the blood mist recovered from the soulfright thorn. He felt a lingering fear from Han Li's strike, and in his rage, he turned around and released a crimson beam from his mouth. However, Han Li wasn't so easily hit. With a wave of his wings, he vanished in a flash of azure-white lightning. A short moment later, Han Li stood in his original place. His expression was calm as if nothing had happened. At that moment, he heard a roar and the blood mist dissipated in a roil. The figure's true appearance was revealed, a blood-red demon with a worm's head and a person's body. A blood worm. Han Li narrowed his eyes. Staring at the recognizable demon, Han Li felt greatly surprised and apprehensive. This wasn't the first time he had seen this demon. He had killed a metamorphosed venomous flood dragon back in the mortal world's scattered star seas, and it looked exactly the same as this demon. However, this bloodworm wasn't a grade 8 demon beast, but a fearsome existence at the high spatial tempering stage. After exchanging an attack, he knew that the demon's abilities were extremely fearsome. He was no ordinary spatial tempering stage being. Han Li's thoughts quickly churned, pondering if he could deal with the opponent before him. The blood worm glanced at Han Li and solemnly said, "It is truly odd for a spirit general to be capable of injuring me. It is no wonder my master had given me a warning." "Your master?" Han Li felt his heart tremble. Behind this fearsome high-spatial tempering grade demon was a greater demon at body integration stage. How could such an existence in the earth abyss set their eyes on him? This was the first time he's arrived here. Bewildered, Han Li's expression sank. The blood worm wore an odd expression and mysteriously smiled. "If you can block my next strike, I will immediately turn around and spare you for the time being." Afterwards, the demon cared no for Han Li's amazed expression. He formed an incantation gesture, and crimson light flashed from his body as a large blood mist spread in every direction. The blood mist that earlier dispersed has returned, roiling as it concealed the crimson worm's body. With a strange incantation, the large blood mist began to form a huge blood cloud in the sky. The cloud loudly roared with thunder and blinked with crimson light. What ability is this? Han Li's heart was greatly shaken. Although the cloud's lightning had yet to drop, it gave him a feeling of dread. Without another thought, he slapped the back of his head and released a large mist of gray light above him. Following that, azure light flashed from the top of his head, summoning the heaven void cauldron. It released countless twinkling azure threads and formed a net below the gray screen. Even so, Han Li still didn't feel safe. He spun his body to release 72 flying swords. They formed a sword screen as they rushed in circles around him. As for his gold-silver lightning robes, they turned into layers of gold-silver talisman characters in front of him. Black mist also surged, and he summoned his baleful armor. In an instant, Han Li erected 5 layers of impenetrable defense. Han Li then raised his arms and the black figure on his hand blurred, releasing a small, foot-tall mountain. He flicked the fingers of his other hand to release 5 pulsing white skulls, each with a different colored flaming wandering around it. When the blood worm saw this, he felt his heart jump and he hesitated briefly. He quickly circulated the blood essence in his body and pointed at the blood cloud in the sky. The cloud flashed blindingly. 9 flaring bolts of blood lightning fiercely cleaved down from the sky, striking at Han Li in 3 waves, each wave striking down with even greater lightning. Thunder rang thrice. The first wave struck down on the gray light mist with 2 bolts of lightning. Even the might of the divine essence effused was scattered away by the 2 bolts of blood lightning. The second wave struck down with 3 bolts. In an explosive flash, the azure net was easily dissolved and struck down on the sword screen. The 72 bamboo cloudswarm sword seemed to form an imaginary defense. The blood lightning directly struck through it and attacked the talisman characters formed from the lightning robes. World-shaking thunder clapped, and the talisman characters turned into lightning balls, blocking the blood lightning. The 3 lightning bolts were like snakes, attempting to spread down, but the gold-silver lightning furiously exploded in an astonishing display of power, unresigned to defeat. But it was clear the blood lightning was more powerful. The blood lightning wildly flashed, scattering the silver-white lightning. The thin 3 bolts of blood lightning continued to strike down on Han Li's baleful armor and released 2 muffled explosions. Han Li effortfully released protections were destroyed in an instant. At that moment, the last wave of the thickest 4 lightning bolts was about to strike. Han Li's expression sank. Without making any other movements, he released a bright golden light from his body. A 3-headed 6-armed projection appeared. It moved, and 6 sparkling golden arms directly reached up to the 4 blood bolts. Although the Provenance True Devil projection was hollow, it possessed might beyond imagination. Its 6 arms stirred and turned into balls of blurred golden lightning. 4 crimson bolts of lightning flashed, directly striking at the golden lightning. The 2 sides struck and silence followed. 2 flashes of blood lightning flashed, and the 6 balls of golden light were no more. 2 unobstructed bolts of blood lightning directly struck the top of Han Li's head. Han Li's figure blurred, and he clenched his hands together. Then, he reached for the sky with his bare hands and met the 2 bolts of lightning with his fists. His black-white fists suddenly expanded several times in size before the lightning struck them. A gray mist and a roaming rainbow flame both spiraled around the fists and seemed to compress the nearby air. 2 explosions roared. Brilliant light radiated and Han Li's sleeves turned to ash, revealing the sparkling golden scales on his skin. His fist projections and the lightning erupted, turning into gray ash. Han Li tumbled back and began to fall before he held himself up and regained his bearings. He raised his head and looked to the blood worm in the distance. Han Li's cold eyes seemed to express he suffered no injuries. The blood worm felt his blood run cold, and he couldn't conceal his surprise. At that moment, the blood cloud flashed several more times before it faded away, exhausted of its power. Although the blood worm was beyond astonished, he was unresigned and sullenly said, "You were actually able to receive my 12th-fold heavenly blood lightning. However, that wasn't my true cultivation art. And once I cultivate this to a deeper level, I'll be able to unleash 4 waves of blood lightning. Nevertheless, you won't be receiving any more." When Han Li heard this, blue light flickered from his eyes, and his body blurred before he vanished. In that next moment, a gale blew above the blood mist, following Han Li's bizarre appearance. He violently struck down with tens of sword light. As the sword light weaved through the air, the nearby space droned as white streaks were left in their wake. In the blink of an eye, the blood mist was submerged by the sword light. With the stir of so much sword chi, the vague figure instantly sliced into countless pieces. But when the blood mist faded away, nothing was left, let alone the corpse of the bloodworm. Han Li was stunned. Before he looked around, the wild laughter of the bloodworm sounded 300 meters away. "Since you've received my heavenly blood lightning, I won't take the risk of further battling with you. Once I report this back to my master, they will certainly be interested in you. I believe we'll see each other soon." Han Li quickly turned around and only heard the sound of fluctuating space and a faint blood-red flicker. Then, light flashed and the blood-red streak flashed through the sky. Using some strange movement technique, the bloodworm was able to travel over 300 meters in only a few blurs with seemingly normal movements. In a few flickers, he was at the horizon, and with another, he was gone. The speed exceeded even the full abilities of his thunderstorm sings. A flicker of astonishment appeared on Han Li's face, but he remained still in the air. A short moment later, he raised his hands and brought them in front of him. His crystalline white hand was now faintly black and scorched. He looked at them in silence. The bloodworm had to be the top subordinate of a body integration stage demon. If he truly fought to the death against the bloodworm, his chances of victory was no greater than 70%, even if he used his gold-devouring beetles. The heavenly blood lightning was truly terrible. Furthermore, his treasures weren't able to block it. His bamboo cloudswarm swords were particularly useless against it. From the worm's words, this ability wasn't even fully cultivated. This caused Han Li's heart to stir. However, what caused Han Li the most unease was the master that the blood worm mentioned. Needless to ask, he definitely wouldn't be a match against them. Although Han Li felt greatly doubtful about how he provoked such a fearsome enemy, he didn't have the time to ponder over the matter and could only return as quickly as he could. So long as he returned to where the Flying Spirit Tribe elders were, this great enemy wouldn't be able to do anything to him. Han Li finished his thoughts after a moment of time. He then turned his head and saw that the 3 were still battling the giant octopus-like demon. With a cold glint in his eye, he sent a golden streak downward. When Lei Lan and the others saw the first streak, countless others began to rain down. This originally fearsome octopus, along with its dozen tentacles, were instantly turned into countless pieces, scattering blood in every direction. The golden light faded and Han Li appeared above the demon's shredded corpse. He glanced at the 3 and coldly said, "You have the time of 13 breaths before I return. Hurry, collect the infernal flame fruits. I won't wait for any of you." Han Li spoke without any emotion in his voice. Upon hearing Han Li's cold words, Lei Lan and the others could naturally see that Han Li wasn't kidding. As such, they didn't dare to delay as they hurried over to the infernal flame fruit trees, pulling out wooden boxes within which they could store the fruits. Xianxia even took an extra fruit and handed the wooden box to Han Li with both hands. Han Li accepted the box without any hesitation, sweeping a sleeve through the air, and the box disappeared amid a flash of azure light. At this moment, Lei Lan and Bai Bai had also collected their infernal flame fruits and gathered nearby. "Let's go. Don't pause or delay for anything. We have to get back to the surface as quickly as possible," Han Li said in a grave voice before flying away as a streak of azure light without providing any additional explanations. Bai Bai and the others didn't know why he was suddenly in such a hurry to leave the earth abyss, but they could guess that this most likely had something to do with the bloodworm. Even the unfathomably powerful Han Li was in such an urgent state. The other three were feeling even more uneasy. Thus, Lei Lan and the others immediately set off in close pursuit. The four of them disappeared into the distance in the blink of an eye. 2 days later, the giant golden flower still stood within that wooden hall on the third level of the earth abyss. The black shadow woman down below was stroking her chin, seemingly in deep thought. At this moment, there was no one else in the hall aside from a pair of green-robed female servants. All of a sudden, a streak of crimson light shot forth from outside the doors, following which the crimson light faded to reveal a crimson demon beast half-knelt within the hall. It was none other than the bloodworm that had just faced Han Li in battle. "I pay my respects to my mistress," the bloodworm said in a respectful manner. The woman turned an indifferent gaze toward the bloodworm and asked, "How did it go? Were you able to kill those people and take their souls?" "My mistress, I was too useless and was unable to kill those people," Zhu Du replied as it lowered its worm head even further. "Oh, so that means those people really are quite out of the ordinary." Not only was the woman not enraged, she was quite intrigued. "Yes, my mistress. The others were quite ordinary in that they were only normal spirit generals, but one of them was able to take the full power of my heavenly blood lightning head-on as a mere late spirit general, as well as an attack from my blood river infernal spike with his physical body alone, yet remain completely unscathed. You told me to return immediately if I encountered any mishaps, so I returned after my failed attacks," Zhu Du recounted. "He was able to withstand your heavenly blood lightning and blood river infernal spike." The Black Shadow was already aware that she would be hearing some interesting news, but Zhu Du's words still came as a surprise to her. The bloodworm paused momentarily before replying. "That's right, not only that, but that man's movement techniques and other abilities are also quite extraordinary. Even if I were to engage in battle with him and fight with all my power, I would still most likely have been defeated. There are countless abilities in this world, so it's not too much of a surprise that he was able to withstand your heavenly blood lightning. However, being able to repel your blood river infernal spike with just his physical body alone as a late spirit general really does suggest that he's quite an extraordinary being. It means that his physical body is extremely powerful, and he would be the ideal blood sacrifice." "Very good, we should have prepared 3 premium blood sacrifices, yet I've only found one, and I was just fretting over this matter." A hint of elation had crept into the woman's voice. "What do we do next, mistress?" "I'll go in person and capture that man alive, then use him to conduct the final sacrificial ceremony." The woman's voice suddenly turned quite sinister. "But mistress, is Master Daizu after this man?" the bloodworm reminded. "Daizu clearly wants to kill these flying spirit beings for their yin souls and use them for some kind of exchange. I only want this man's physical body, so there's no conflict of interest here. Why should I be concerned?" the woman said in a cold voice, and her guess was spot on. "Your wisdom is unmatched, mistress." The bloodworm was enlightened by her words. "We shouldn't delay any further. Daizu, teleport to the second level with me and let's hunt this man down together," the woman instructed. "Yes, mistress." The bloodworm immediately rose to his feet. The black shadow on the giant golden flower flashed. The woman appeared beside the bloodworm in a wraith-like manner. She made a hand seal and began to chant something, upon which inky black light poured forth from her body, sweeping up the two of them in the blink of an eye. Following a quick flash, the two of them disappeared amid the black light. On the other end, Han Li and the others were flying with all their might, covering a distance that would have taken several days otherwise in just a single day. However, they were still racing along. Thankfully, all of the dangerous demon beasts along the way had already been exterminated by them, and they were quite familiar with this route, having traveled it once already, so there was no need for them to stop for anything. Even so, Bai, Qin Zio, and Lei Lan had expended a lot of spiritual power during such high-intensity flight, and they were struggling to maintain this pace. However, they didn't dare to complain in the slightest as the sight of the grim expression on Han Li's face, so they could only grit their teeth and continue onward. A day later, a swamp appeared up ahead, and the second-level exit was revealed to them. Han Li heaved a faint sigh of relief upon seeing this, before immediately leading the group into the exit, without any hesitation. Half a day later, Han Li and the others reappeared in the valley on the first level of the earth abyss. At this moment, Han Li suddenly made a decision that had the others completely dumbstruck. As soon as they exited the valley, Han Li suddenly said in a cold voice, "We'll split up from now on. Separate yourselves from me, and we'll fly back the surface as quickly as we can along different routes." "What? Why, Brother Han?" Bai and the others were all stunned to hear this. "With the situation as it currently is, I won't keep you three in the dark any longer. We may have caught the interest of a demon monarch-level existence in this earth abyss. Even with my abilities, there's no way I can oppose such a fearsome being. I don't when they'll be able to catch up to us, but if we split up, there's a very good chance that they'll come after me, which means there will be a greater chance for you three to escape to the surface. On top of that, without having to take the three of you with me, I'll be able to flee without any inhibitions. There should be very few things on this first level that can pose a threat to you, so you should be safe here," Han Li explained. "How could a demon monarch level being have developed an interest in us? Are you sure you haven't misjudged the situation, Brother Han?" Qin Zhao immediately turned deathly pale. "I don't know the reason behind this, but that's all I have to say. Your lives belong to you and you can choose whether you believe me or not. However, I suggest that it's best for us to split up. Perhaps our pursuers will catch up to us soon," Han Li said in a brisk tone. Lei Lan and the others glanced at one another upon hearing this. It was just as Han Li had said. Their lives belonged to them. Regardless of whether Han Li had misjudged or not, they could only regard this to be true. Furthermore, Han Li's judgment had been faultless throughout their journey, so there was a good chance that he was correct on this occasion as well. As such, Lei Lan and the others could only follow his advice and fly toward another direction after Han Li flew off and left them behind. As long as they could return to the surface, they would most likely be safe. A streak of azure light sped through a set of barren plains in a frenzy, moving as fast as lightning. It traveled from one end of the sky to the other after just a few flashes, and it was racing along in a completely soundless manner. Many demon beasts and demonic insects down below had noticed the streak of azure light in the sky, but they were nowhere near fast enough to catch up to it, so they could only look on as it disappeared into the distance. Han Li was flying as quickly as he could while holding a pair of top-grade spirit stones to replenish his energy. Back when he was traveling to the spirit realm through the spatial node, he had used up all of his myriad-year spirit milk. As such, he had no choice but to use top-grade spirit stones instead. They were indeed extremely valuable, but in this dire situation, he certainly couldn't be stingy with them. Han Li's decision to split up with the other three was a forced one. He had told Lei Lan and the others most of the truth, but he had hidden one thing from them. He had a feeling that those demons from earlier seemed to be targeting him, and didn't pay much heed to Lei Lan and the others. In this situation, splitting up with them would make the rest of their journey to the surface a lot safer. He had protected the two Tianping race holy disciples throughout this trial, helped them secure infernal flame fruits, and also led them safely back to the first level. He had done everything in his power, so the rest was up to those holy disciples themselves. He had to worry about his own safety now. Up to this point, he hadn't noticed anything amiss nearby, and he wasn't too far away from the entrance that led up the surface, but Han Li didn't dare to get complacent, even in the slightest. Not only did he not slow down, he instead expelled a mouthful of blood essence and unleashed a secret technique to accelerate even further. If he could expend some energy to avoid a body integration stage demon monarch, then that would most definitely be a wise decision. However, after flying for over half a day, Han Li's expression suddenly changed drastically as he abruptly turned around to look behind him. A streak of black light had appeared in the distant sky, and it was speeding straight toward him. Furthermore, it seemed to be closing in rapidly. A dark expression appeared on Han Li's face, and he immediately flapped his thunderstorm wings, appearing over 1,000 feet away in the blink of an eye. He didn't have any means through which he could conceal himself, so he could only unleash the full power of this thunderstorm wings. A faint cry of surprise sounded from within the black light, and Han Li felt as if it had been uttered right beside him. His heart sank as he flapped his wings vigorously, launching himself through the air at an astonishing pace, as if he were trying to puncture space itself. "That's him up ahead, right? He really does have some skill. However, if he can escape from me, then that would be a massive joke," a female voice sounded. The ones within the streak of black light were none other than the Black Shadow Woman and Zhu Du. They had managed to somehow track Han Li with unerring accuracy all the way to the first level. The woman chuckled coldly as she made a hand seal, and the black light around them immediately swirled before manifesting a black formation of light. Light surged through the formation, and the woman and Zhu Du's bodies blurred slightly before vanishing. Incredible scene then ensued. Just as Han Li was racing through the air, spatial fluctuations suddenly erupted up ahead, following which a massive black spell formation surfaced out of thin air. Han Li's heart jolted with shock, and he wanted to stop, but it was already too late. Unleashing the full power of his thunderstorm wings naturally allowed him to fly at an extraordinary speed, but what he gained in speed was compromised by a lack of control. As such, he plunged headfirst into the black formation, having been unable to arrest his own momentum. Han Li felt his world go dark, following which streaks of black light and gusts of yin winds swept forth from all directions, as if he'd entered through the gates of an infernal hell. Han Li immediately unleashed countless arcs of golden lightning, without any hesitation amid a string of loud thunderclaps. All of the black light and yin winds immediately exploded into nothingness as soon as they came into contact with this golden lightning, as if they'd met the bane of their existence. Letter 1D65B, letter 1D493, letter 1D4E, letter 1D486, letter 1D500, letter 1D486, letter 1D484, letter 1D4F8, letter 1D4F6. Divine Devilbane Lightning. You possess lightning of this caliber. The woman's surprised voice sounded from all around Han Li, following which the black light in the surrounding area began to swirl, and it was only picking up speed in its rotation. Han Li's heart jolted with shock, as all of the golden arcs of lightning around his body formed a golden lightning garment that settled over his body. However, right at this moment, a woman's giggling voice sounded. "There's no need to be alarmed, fellow Taoist. I bear no ill will toward you. I only wanted to invite you as a guest to my humble abode." Han Li naturally wasn't going to be fooled by this as he flapped his wings to try and escape. However, the woman seemed to have predicted his actions in advance, and she suddenly thrust a palm toward him from afar. A burst of enormous power crashed into Han Li, and such was its power that even with his current body, he was still unable to force his way through it. Han Li's heart immediately sank. During this split-second delay, black light flashed within the massive formation, and all three of them disappeared at once. Han Li was struck by a rush of dizziness, and he immediately activated his great development technique to regain his clarity of mind. Only then did he discover that he'd been teleported to a tall platform that resembled a sacrificial altar. At this moment, he was standing atop a teleportation formation. The woman and the bloodworm were standing not too far away from him, and it was as if they hadn't even moved a single step since the beginning. Judging from the dense aura of darkness in the surrounding air, this was most likely a level of the earth abyss that was deeper than the second level. What was even more concerning to him was that there were 7 or 8 demons of different forms standing near the platform. All of them were half-humanoid, half-demonic creatures, and they were at the nascent soul and deity transformation stages. Looking at the buildings around the tall platform, he had clearly been teleported into the nest of some kind of demon beast. In this perilous situation, Han Li didn't dare to engage in any reckless actions, and merely appraised the woman in silence. This was most likely the mistress that the bloodworm had been referring to. Otherwise, how could she possibly possess such extraordinary abilities to be able to abduct him to this place with such ease? "Come and have a chat with me in the hall first, fellow Taoist," the Black Shadow woman invited with a smile before flying toward the cluster of buildings in the distance. Zhu Du glanced at Han Li with a rather peculiar look on its face before also following the woman away. He didn't seem to be concerned in the slightest that Han Li would try to escape again. Han Li looked around at the cluster of buildings, then up at the sky, and a wry smile appeared on his face. The entire sky was filled with dense gray clouds, and there was a burst of indescribable spiritual power radiating from the sky along with flashes of black lightning. A powerful restriction had clearly been set up here, and it was definitely not one that he'd be able to escape from in a short time. However, judging from the woman's words and actions, she didn't seem intent on killing him right away. As such, it was best to listen to what she had to say first, then see if there were any opportunities he could take advantage of. With that in mind, Han Li was feeling slightly more assured as he followed the woman and Zhu Du as a streak of azure light. Han Li was led to the largest of the cluster of buildings by the woman and the bloodworm. He glanced at the demon beasts standing guard on either side of the wooden hall, and a peculiar look on his face. All of these demon beasts were short ape-like creatures, each sitting atop a black giant spirit flower with their roots planted deep into the soil outside the doors of the wooden hall. A contemplative look appeared on Han Li's face, and he felt as if he'd discovered why this woman was targeting him. Without any further delay, Han Li strode into the hall under the menacing eyes of the apes outside. The entire hall was completely empty aside from the Black Shadow woman and the bloodworm. There were 2 rows of wooden chairs lined up on either side of the hall, and the woman had already made her way over to a massive golden flower at the center of the hall. She then sat down with her legs crossed, while the bloodworm stood beside her in an obedient manner. The woman gestured for Han Li to take a seat on one of the nearby wooden chairs before clapping her hands as she instructed, "Bring some tea for our guest." Moments later, a green-robed female servant with a set of fine and delicate facial features appeared within the hall, carrying a wooden platter, upon which was placed 2 white teacups. The servant handed 1 cup to Han Li and the other to the woman, neglecting to prepare one for the bloodworm. However, Zhu Du's expression remained unchanged, as if he were already accustomed to such treatment. Han Li looked at the tea in the cup, and his lips twitched. Within the pristine white teacup was a tiny pool of inky black liquid that was emanating a rank odor. Even just catching a whiff of this tea was making his expression change slightly, let alone drinking it. He was able to instantly identify that there were several tens of types of lethal poison in this tea, and he had only been able to identify a small portion of its constituents. Even with the poisons that he'd identified, those would definitely be sufficient to kill a normal person on the spot. Han Li was indeed quite confident in his physical body, but he certainly wasn't going to go around drinking poison for no good reason. The woman wore a faint smile on her face, and she seemed to have identified Han Li's reluctance. "Rest assured, fellow Taoist, I brewed this tea using 81 different types of lethal poison, yet all of them cancel each other out to create a completely harmless drink. On top of that, frequent consumption of this beverage is beneficial to one's spiritual sense." She then took a sip of this tea to set an example, and he hesitated momentarily before also taking a small sip. With the woman's abilities, there was no need for her to try and kill him using poison tea, as other more direct methods would suffice. As such, decided to go along with whatever she had planned. Furthermore, it appeared that she wasn't lying about this. The putrid-smelling tea was extremely bitter, but after sliding down his throat, it transformed into a ball of heat that spread through his entire body via his meridians. At the same time, a cool sensation rushed into his mind, making him instantly feel more sharp and alert. He quickly inspected his body with his spiritual sense, and was greatly relieved to find that he hadn't been poisoned. "Thank you for your hospitality, Senior, but may I ask why you've brought me here? This is my first time here in this Earth Abyss, and surely I haven't done anything to offend you," Han Li said in a grim voice as he placed the teacup onto the table beside him. The Black Shadow woman appraised Han Li carefully for a while, and only after Han Li was starting to get chills running down his spine did she reply in an unhurried voice. "I've invited you here because I have something important to discuss with you, but there's no hurry in that. You can stay here for a few days first, and I'll reveal everything to you after that. By the way, may I ask your name? My name is Mu Qing." After a brief hesitation, Han Li decided to tell the truth. Junior Han Li pays his respects to Senior Mu Qing. There was no point in lying about something like this, and if his lie were to be exposed, it would surely leave a bad taste in Mu Qing's mouth. "So it's fellow Taoist Han. Beer, take fellow Taoist Han to rest in the guest pavilion for now. Make sure to satisfy every single one of his needs." Mu Qing's voice suddenly turned quite cold as she delivered an instruction to the female servant in the hall. The green-robed woman faltered upon hearing this, before immediately falling to her knees to accept the order. As such, Han Li could only stand up and follow her out of the hall. Thus, Mu Qing and Zhu Du were the only ones left in the building. Mu Qing looked on in the direction that Han Li had departed in, and the expression on her face suggested that she was in deep thought. Meanwhile, Zhu Du remained completely silent beside, as if he were a mute. "Zhu Du, don't you want to ask me why I changed my mind?" Mu Qing suddenly asked. "My mistress naturally has her reasons. There's no need for my lowly self to state any questions," Zhu Du replied with a respectful bow. "He, you sure know how to talk. There's no reason for me to keep this a secret from you. I decided to change my mind naturally because I've found a more worthwhile use for him than using him as a blood sacrifice," Mu Qing giggled. "Could it be that you're referring to his divine devilbane lightning, mistress?" Zhu Du asked as his heart stirred slightly. It's exactly because of that. Premium blood sacrifices are hard to find, but I can always gather more given some time. However, with this divine lightning to assist me, the probability of success for our grand scheme will be increased by at least 10%. Do I need to elaborate on which one is more important?" Mu Qing explained. "I see. No wonder you changed your mind then, mistress. However, Master Daizu singled out that man to be killed, so we'll have to give him a proper explanation. After all, he's certainly not the kind to forgive and forget, Zhu Du chuckled. I'm well aware of that. However, make sure to keep a close eye on that hand brat before I reveal everything to him. Otherwise, it'll be quite troublesome if he were to get away again, Mu Qing instructed. Yes, mistress, I'll be sure to keep a constant eye on him, Zhu Du replied in a respectful manner. Mu Qing nodded with a pleased expression before waving a dismissive hand, and Zhu Du immediately recognized that as a cue for him to leave. Meanwhile, Mu Qing sat still in contemplation for a while, before suddenly laying a hand on the giant golden flower before her. The massive flower tremored slightly, and a shimmering golden mirror of an antiquated design emerged from the flower's core. There were runes flashing indistinctly over the mirror, and Mu Qing opened her mouth to expel a ball of green qi onto the mirror's surface. Golden light flashed, and the green qi disappeared into the mirror, following which a layer of golden light appeared over the surface. Moments later, an indifferent male voice sounded from within the golden light. Why have you contacted me, fellow Taoist Mu? Mu Qing smiled upon hearing this voice, and she replied, Brother Liu Zhu, I was wondering how your yin qi collection was going. Will you be able to supply sufficient yin qi for that ghost hag to refine a sufficient number of yin armor profound ghosts by the designated date? After a brief silence, Liu Zhu replied in a completely emotionless voice, I've collected all of the yin qi there is on the lower levels. The yin qi on the first level is the most sparse, but I can gather quite a bit given sufficient time. There will definitely be enough for 8,000 of those profound ghosts. Why are you suddenly asking me this, fellow Taoist Mu? Instead of answering the question, Mu Qing changed the subject. According to our plan, the 8,000 profound ghosts and all of Daizu's puppets are mere cannon fodder to pave the way for the infernal river ghosts. However, we have to employ another method to remove the restriction on the infernal river. The resources that we currently have at our disposal may not be all that reliable for that task. Liu Zhu immediately caught on to something, and his voice changed slightly as he asked, Have you found a good way to dispel this restriction, fellow Taoist Mu? He, you sure know me well, brother Liu Zhu. I have indeed just discovered something of value, and I wanted to share the good news with you, Mu Qing chuckled. So what's the good news? Liu Zhu's voice turned flat and emotionless again. I found a being that can use divine devil-bane lightning. The infernal river restriction is predominantly comprised of yin qi, but the most troublesome element about the restriction is actually the infernal devilish qi contained within it. The devilish qi is extremely pure, and if we were to go ahead with our original plan, there's a good chance that it might fail. However, with divine devil-bane lightning on our side, that devilish qi won't be an issue for us, Mu Qing said, as a serious expression appeared on her face. Divine devil-bane lightning is indeed the bane of all devilish qi, but in ancient times when the evil dragon race ruled over the spirit realm, almost all of the golden lightning bamboo in the spirit realm was harvested into extinction by them. At the time, all cultivators with divine devil-bane lightning or possessed this bamboo were also slain. How did you manage to find someone capable of using such divine lightning? Are you sure you're not mistaken? Liu Zhu seemed to be rather skeptical of her claim. Rest assured, brother Liu Zhu, the lightning unleashed by that man was most definitely divine devil-bane lightning. The only problem is that he doesn't seem to be aware of the true method to use this lightning. He's merely unleashing it as part of his attacks as if it were merely normal lightning, and he's only able to make use of a tiny portion of its power as a result, Mu Qing chuckled coldly. Oh, in that case, then that makes sense. That being must have unintentionally come across some golden lightning jade and attained this lightning by chance, Liu Zhu analyzed calmly. I also believe that to be the case. Otherwise, if he were capable of unleashing the true power of his divine devil-bane lightning, even you and I would have to be wary of him. However, for us to encounter a being like at this time and in this place is a massive stroke of fortune for us. It appears that even the heavens is lending us its assistance, Mu Qing said with a smile. If he really does possess divine devil-bane lightning, then he'll naturally be a great help to us. However, why have you suddenly decided to tell me about this? Are there some troublesome circumstances involved? Liu Zhu asked. Your wisdom is truly unmatched, brother Liu Zhu. Truth be told, Daizu asked me to kill this man and hand over his yin soul to him. I'm guessing that this most likely has something to do with the ghost hag, Mu Qing replied with a faint smile. I see, so you want to keep this man for yourself and ask me to mediate. Liu Zhu immediately understood Mu Qing's intentions. Exactly. You should be aware that I possess a wood spirit body, so my understanding of Golden Lightning Jade is unmatched among the four of us. If I can provide guidance to that man in person, he should be able to quickly master the true power of his divine Devilbane lightning before the initiation of our plan. Mu Qing chuckled in response, showing no intention of hiding anything. You're right, but this matter is quite important, so I'll have to discuss it with the others. The three of us will also have to see this man in person for verification purposes, Liu Zhu finally replied after a lengthy period of contemplation. That can definitely be arranged. All of you can gather at my abode in half a month. I'll leave it to you to inform the others, Brother Liu Zhu. I'll make sure to prepare a splendid welcome for all of you, Mu Qing said with a smile. Letter 1D5F3, letter 1D69B, letter 1D6AT, letter 1D6AT, letter 1D604, letter 1D556, letter 1D5F0, letter 1D560, letter 1D46. All right, we'll do as you say, Liu Zhu agreed without any hesitation. The golden light on the mirror then faded, and the voice transmission was cut off. HMPH, it's just as I expected. Liu Zhu doesn't care whose hands this man falls into. But then again, he's the only one among us who doesn't fear divine lightning, so of course it doesn't matter to him. The other two most likely won't be able to accept this arrangement, though. It's too bad for them that I'm the one who captured him, and there's no way I'm handing over to them. Mu Qing's cold voice reverberated throughout the spacious hall. And Li sat beside a round table, looking at the man who was pouring wine for him with a wide smile on his face in a speechless manner. This was a scholar with a set of graceful features, and he appeared to be in his 30s. He was currently holding a green jade cup of wine and trying to propose a toast. There were all types of delicious dishes, as well as a black urn on the round table. The urn was filled with delectable wine that was giving off a mesmerizing aroma. The green-robed servant, by the name of Beer, was standing off to the side. Come on, Brother Han, have a taste of our wood essence wine. It was brewed using the essence of myriad-year spirit wood, and even though it may not be as effective as the tea you had earlier, it can still bolster your spiritual sense. Once you have a few more cups of this wine, you'll know how amazing it is, the middle-aged scholar urged in an enthusiastic manner. Senior Zhu Du, I'm a complete lightweight when it comes to drinking. After the few cups I've had, I'm already at my limit. If I keep going, I'm going to make an embarrassment out of myself, Han Li said in a resigned manner. This middle-aged scholar was none other than the human form of that bloodworm. As soon as Han Li had been led into the guest pavilion, he had immediately turned up and organized this massive feast for himself and Han Li. Han Li was essentially being held as prisoner by them, so he naturally couldn't refuse. As such, he could only sit down by the table and dine with the bloodworm. Haha, at our cultivation bases, a few cups of spirit wine will barely have any effect. Could it be that you still hold a grudge against me from our earlier battle? Zhu Du suddenly asked as he cocked his head to the side. If you hadn't mentioned it, I would have forgotten such a trivial event already, so I certainly wouldn't be holding any grudges. All right then, I'll have one more cup of wine. Han Li could only make a concession in the face of Zhu Du's insistence. He then poured himself a cup of wine, before downing it in a single mouthful. Beer immediately stepped forward to fill Han Li's cup with wine from the urn again, and Han Li furrowed his brows in response, but refrained from saying anything in the end. Meanwhile, Zhu Du smiled as he said, "Enjoy your time here in our wood immortal valley. My mistress clearly holds you in high regard, so she must have an important task for you to complete. Regardless of what that task is, you'll definitely receive a rich reward for your efforts. Isn't that much better than going back to the flying spirit race to be a so-called holy disciple? I'm going to go as far as to say that our Earth Abyss can provide you with everything that the flying spirit race can, and we can even give you things that the flying spirit race can't. This is a brilliant opportunity for you, fellow Taoist." Zhu Du was trying to convince Han Li to switch his allegiance. Han Li's lips twitched, and he didn't give a direct reply. Instead, he smiled and asked, "What level of the Earth Abyss is this? Would you be able to disclose that to me, Senior? And would you be able to tell me what Senior Mu Qing intends to do with me?" "Unfortunately, that's something that I won't be able to tell you for now. However, everything will be revealed to you in half a month or a month at most by my mistress. As for what level of the Earth Abyss we're currently situated in, that's something I can certainly disclose to you. This is the Black Mist Forest of the third level," Zhu Du replied. "The Black Mist Forest is the forest enshrouded under yin mist that traps all beings who enter it." Han Li's expression changed slightly upon hearing this. Haha, that's the one. I didn't think that our forest would be so renowned in the flying spirit race. Truth be told, my mistress set up a restriction in the forest, which is why no beings are able to escape from it, Zhu Du replied with an amused chuckle. I see. A wry smile appeared on Han Li's face, and he didn't say anything further. After convincing Han Li to down a few more cups of wood essence wine, Zhu Du suddenly asked, "By the way, there's something that I'm quite curious about. Would you be able to enlighten me, Brother Han?" "Of course, I'll tell you everything I know." Han Li's heart stirred, and he immediately activated his great development technique to completely dispel the hint of inebriation that was numbing his mind. It's nothing much. I was just wondering how you were able to attain such a powerful body. Even though my blood river infernal spike isn't renowned for its sharpness, for you to be able to repel it with your physical body alone is still incredible, Zhu Du said after a brief pause. At the same time, he was looking into Han Li's eyes with an unblinking gaze. So that's what you wanted to ask me. My body is indeed slightly more powerful than that of the average person, but that's only because I stumbled upon a few spirit medicines by chance in the past and consumed them to bolster my constitution. My body can't compare to the body of a worm like yours, Senior, Han Li replied in a calm manner. I see. I suspected that to be the case. However, the final three-headed and six-armed projection you summoned to withstand my final attack doesn't seem to be the true spirit projection of your race, right, Brother Han? It felt rather familiar to me, but I can't recall where I've seen it before. Would you be able to provide me with a reminder? Zhu Du asked with a faint smile. Oh, that's just a foreign cultivation art that I happened to obtain, and I decided to cultivate it, seeing as it was a rather useful ability, but I'm not too familiar with its origins either, Han Li replied in an extremely vague manner. In reality, his answer provided no answers whatsoever. Zhu Du was slightly surprised that Han Li was able to muster up such a wily response after downing so much wine, but he merely chuckled and spoke no further about this matter. Thus, Zhu Du only bade farewell to Han Li after seemingly becoming extremely inebriated. Han Li stood at the window of the pavilion, and his fake smile faded as he looked out at the departing Zhu Du. The middle-aged scholar stumbled unsteadily toward another pavilion that was only several thousand feet away from the one that Han Li was situated in. Han Li's brows furrowed slightly upon seeing this. At such close quarters, Zhu Du would be able to constantly monitor his actions. It appeared that he had been tasked with keeping an eye on Han Li. With that in mind, Han Li strode away from the window. At this point, the green-robed servant had already carried the dishes and wine urn away, and the room had been cleaned up to a pristine condition. She then stood respectfully off to the side, awaiting any instructions from Han Li. Han Li waved a dismissive hand toward her and said, "You can go now. I want to take a rest." "I'll be on the first floor. Feel free to summon me at any time, Master Han," Beer replied obediently before departing from the room. After the servant had left, Han Li swept a hand over his storage bracelet to produce a stack of azure formation flags. He then raised his hand, and a dozen or so streaks of azure flew in all directions around the room before disappearing into space. Han Li made a hand seal and cast an azure incantation seal, following which a dull thump erupted all around him. An azure barrier of light appeared on the walls of the room, creating a restriction. This restriction had no defensive properties, but it was quite effective in cutting off the spiritual sense of others. Han Li knew that he had been imprisoned, but he still didn't want Zhu Du to be able to see everything that he was doing. In the other pavilion, Zhu Du had just sat down atop a futon with his eyes closed when his expression changed slightly, and he abruptly reopened his eyes. However, a cold smile then quickly appeared on his face as he closed his eyes again. At this point, Han Li had already laid down on his bed. Even though he was in a perilous place, there was nothing he could do about his current situation. Furthermore, he was rather exhausted from the ordeals he'd been beset with during this Earth Abyss trial, so this was a good opportunity for him to relax and recuperate. He could consider strategies to try and escape after recovering to his peak condition. With that in mind, Han Li quickly fell asleep. He slept for an entire day and an entire night before finally waking up. After getting up from his bed, Han Li did a series of stretches in an unhurried manner before sitting down in the wooden chair beside his bed, stroking his chin in deep thought. Mu Qing and Zhu Du had tried to convince him that they wanted to entrust him with an important task from the very beginning, but Han Li didn't believe a word of that. Setting aside everything else, with his countless years of battle experience, he could tell that the two of them had truly been intent on killing him initially. As for why this Mu Qing suddenly changed her mind, that was definitely because she's unintentionally discovered something about him that could be used to her benefit. However, it had only taken mere moments for her to change her mind, and the only clue that Han Li could think of was that she seemed to have been alarmed by his ability to use divine devil-bane lightning. Han Li's eyes flashed as this thought occurred to him. He felt like he was onto something. Letter 1D5F3, letter 1D4 2B, letter 1D6AT, letter 1D5F2, letter 1D6A0, letter 1D6AT, letter 1D5F0, letter 1D5FC, letter 1D5FA. However, despite the fact that the divine devil-bane lightning was extremely effective for anguishing all powers of darkness and evil, its efficacy was limited when the devilish chi was of a high enough caliber. How could the power of his divine devil-bane lightning possibly have garnered the interest of a body integration stage demon monarch like Mu Qing? If a devilish creature or evil spirit was too powerful even for her to deal with, then how was Han Li's divine devil-bane lightning supposed to do anything? Han Li was feeling rather perplexed. However, he didn't try to force himself to arrive at a conclusion. Instead, he merely exhaled and relinquished this train of thought for now. Seeing as they had found a worthwhile reason to keep him alive, then he would most likely be safe for now. As long as he remained alert, he was quite confident in his ability to escape from this place. Next, he only had to wait for Mu Qing to disclose everything to him before formulating a plan based on that information. Thus, Han Li decided to play the waiting game. As for escaping right away, the thought did cross his mind, but he didn't consider it for very long, seeing as Zhu Du was residing so close to him. His thoughts then strayed to Lei Lan and the others. Seeing as Mu Qing and Zhu Du had both come after him, those three had most likely returned to the surface and passed the trial. As such, he had fulfilled his promise to the Tianpeng race and regained his freedom. As a result, the Tianpeng vow of the Tianpeng race would cease to have any further restrictive effect on him. But then again, the Tianpeng race was only concerned about whether Lei Lan and Bai Bai would be able to pass the trial. They didn't care whether Han Li died or not. Han Li chuckled to himself before returning to his bed and taking a seat in a cross-legged manner. His expression smoothed out as he began to meditate. Half a month flew by in the blink of an eye. During this time, Zhu Du would occasionally come over to drink and chat with Han Li, but Han Li stayed in his room all day and made Zhu Du's job quite an easy one. On this day, Zhu Du visited Han Li again, and he wore a serious expression as he said, "Brother Han, my mistress would like you to meet her in the Wood Spirit Hall. She would like to introduce you to a few other seniors." "Sure, thank you for informing me of that, Senior Zhu," Han Li replied in a completely calm manner. Zhu Du was starting to admire Han Li's mental fortitude. If he were in Han Li's shoes, he knew that he definitely wouldn't be able to remain so calm and collected. Thus, Zhu Du led Han Li out of the pavilion. After a while, Han Li appeared in front of the wooden hall again before entering through the doors behind Zhu Du. The setup within the hall was slightly different from when Han Li had last been here. There were 3 long tables set up on either side of the hall, with a group of people seated at each table. Han Li cast his gaze over to a table where only 2 people were seated. Both of their bodies had been hidden under long crimson robes, and Han Li was completely unable to glean their appearance nor their auras. As far as Han Li knew, these people could even be avatars of the same person. On another table, there was a burly man wearing a black cloak, and a burst of glacial chi was emanating from his body, making it feel as if the air around him had been frozen solid. At the final table sat 3 women. One of them was a middle-aged beauty with a head of snowy white hair and an extremely pale complexion. She wore a green palatial dress and sat at the head of the table. 2 young women sat at the table with her. One of them was quite petite with a sweet and adorable oval face and a pair of shimmering eyes. The other woman had a lithe and graceful figure with skin as fair as snow and an expression as cold as ice. All 3 women were quite pale in complexion. None of the people on the first 2 tables caught Han Li's attention. Even though all of their cultivation bases were unfathomable to him, he had expected this to be the case prior to coming here, so he wasn't very surprised. However, his calm facade finally cracked a little at the sight of the 2 young women on the final table. He quickly composed himself again, and his expression reverted back to normal, but the hint of shock in his eyes betrayed his true emotions. How could it be them? Back when he'd been separated from these 2 in the scattered star seas of the human world, he hadn't heard anything about them again, and never would he have thought that he'd encounter them here in the spirit realm. Seeing as the 2 of them were still alive, it appeared that they had successfully mastered the soul-rise technique. Even though Han Li quickly turned his attention away from them, his heart was still reeling with shock. The lithe and graceful beauty was none other than Yuan Yao from the scattered star seas, and the petite woman beside her was naturally her senior martial sister, Yan Li, who had almost perished all those years ago. Back when he was starting to make a name for himself in the human world, he'd encountered Yuan Yao on several occasions. He was touched by her determination to save Yan Li and gave in to her pleas in the end, deciding to provide her with his assistance. However, who would have thought that they'd encounter the legendary ghost Mist along the way? He was sucked into the Umbra realm as a result, and only managed to escape after an extensive struggle. However, after emerging from there, Yuan Yao had disappeared. Now that he was encountering her again, she was seemingly ranked alongside the demon monarchs of the Earth Abyss. How was Han Li supposed to remain calm after making such a discovery? In the instant that Han Li made his way into the hall, everyone else also turned their attention toward him. However, Yuan Yao and Yan Li's reactions were quite different. A hint of astonishment had flashed through Yuan Yao's eyes upon catching sight of Han Li, but she immediately adopted an expressionless facade again, not giving away anything. In contrast, Yan Li merely blinked with confusion, and it was quite clear that she'd basically forgotten about Han Li, yet was struck by the feeling that he was rather familiar somehow. He's just a spirit general. Are you sure he'll be useful to us? The middle-aged woman sitting at Yuan Yao's table asked in a cold voice. Don't be so hasty to jump to conclusions, fellow Taoist Lan. Fellow Taoist Han is far more powerful than his cultivation base indicates, and he possesses the divine Devilbane lightning. Even if his cultivation base were a rank or two lower, he'd still be of great help to us if he could unleash the true power of his divine Devilbane lightning, Mu Qing chuckled. Divine Devilbane lightning isn't that easy to master. The higher one's cultivation base, the greater the likelihood that they'll be able to master this lightning. I'm very skeptical that a spirit general would be able to truly unleash the power of the divine lightning. If I recall correctly, you'd have to at least be an early great spirit general to be able to unleash the divine Devilbane lightning's full power, right? A red-robed being from another table spoke on this occasion, and his voice was quite sharp and piercing, akin to the sound of metal grating on metal. Don't worry about that, Brother Daizu. Even though fellow Taoist Han is only a late spirit general, the purity and abundances of his magic power is only a tiny bit inferior compared to that of an early great spirit general, so I'm sure he's up to the task. Alternatively, do you have any suggestions for methods that could help us dispel the infernal river restriction? Mu Qing asked in a meaningful voice. If this man really can help us break the restriction, then that would naturally be fantastic. I have no intention of stopping him. I'm merely concerned that he's not going to be able to provide us with any substantial assistance, so please don't misconstrue my words. The other red-robed figure chimed in, and his voice was exactly the same as that of the man who had just spoken, as if they were the same person. Mu Qing's expression remained unchanged as she said, "It would be best if that was indeed the case. Brother Liu Zhu, Sister Lan, what do you two think of this?" "As long as it's beneficial to our grand scheme, I'll support it," the mysterious figure in the black cloak said in an emotionless voice. However, the white-haired beauty's brows were tightly furrowed, as if she were mulling over something. "What is it, Sister Lan? Do you have any alternative opinions you'd like to air?" Mu Qing asked. "This man's soul is remarkably powerful, and I was planning to refine his soul into one of my ghost monarchs, but I have to source other materials now. Besides, Zhu Dai and I discovered this person before you, so isn't it inappropriate for you to claim him like this?" the woman said in a calm voice. "He, are you saying you'd like to instruct him instead, Sister Lan? But if I'm not mistaken, you're vulnerable to lightning, are you not? In that case, how will you instruct him to master his divine lightning? If we miss out on this opportunity due to a delay on your end, we'll be regretting this for the rest of our lives," Mu Qing said with a faint smile. "Oh, it sounds like you're implying that you have a better understanding of divine Devilbane lightning than I do. Neither of us has attained this lightning before, so why does it make a difference whether you or I instruct him?" The white-haired beauty chuckled coldly. "I possess a wood spirit body. Back in ancient times, divine Devilbane lightning was the paramount wood attribute divine lightning among the divine lightning of the 5 elements. Surely I'm more qualified than anyone else here to instruct him." Mu Qing's expression darkened slightly. "That's not necessarily the case. I've spent far more years cultivating than you have, and I believe that gulf in experience is more than enough to outweigh any other advantages you may have in this respect," the woman retorted in a cold and unyielding manner. Mu Qing's expression changed slightly upon hearing this, and she was just about to say something when Liu Zhu interjected. "There's no need for an argument. Shouldn't we confirm whether fellow Taoist Han truly possesses the divine devil-bane lightning before we discuss anything else? This Liu Zhu was clearly the most authoritative figure among the four, as evidenced by the fact that both women did indeed fall silent upon hearing his words. Mu Qing turned to Han Li with a calm expression and said, "I'm sure you've heard everything we've just discussed, so I'll have to trouble you to unleash your divine devil-bane lightning again and display it to everyone present. I'm sure you wouldn't refuse such a small request, right, fellow Taoist Han?" A wry smile appeared on Han Li's face, and he wasted no time with words as he made a hand seal. A rumbling thunderclap immediately erupted as brilliant golden light radiated from his body. Countless thin arcs of electricity surfaced from within his body before forming several thick bolts of golden lightning in the blink of an eye, creating quite a marvelous spectacle to behold. Everyone in the wooden hall stared intently at the golden arcs of lightning, including Mu Qing, even though she'd already seen it once before. Liu Zhu waved a sleeve toward Han Li, and a burst of black yin winds rushed directly toward him. Han Li raised an eyebrow before pointing a finger, sending a bolt of golden lightning hurtling toward the oncoming gust of yin winds. The golden lightning exploded amid a loud boom as soon as it came into contact with the black winds, and the latter faded like snow under the scorching sun, disappearing into nothingness in the blink of an eye. "There's no mistaking it, this really is divine devil-bane lightning," Liu Zhu nodded, and there was a hint of elation in his voice. "How many bolts of divine devil-bane lightning of that caliber are you capable of unleashing, fellow Taoist?" one of the red-robed figures suddenly asked. "Around 20, but after that, it'll take a long time for the lightning to recover to its original power," Han Li replied. He was completely lying in his response. In reality, he was able to unleash thrice the quantity of lightning he'd proclaimed. 20 should be enough. The other red-robed figure cackled with glee upon hearing this. Indeed, even though the infernal river restriction is quite formidable, there's no way that it'll hold up in the face of so many bolts of divine lightning. All right, his divine lightning has been confirmed. Let's discuss who will be instructing fellow Taoist Han. Fellow Taoist Dai Zhu and I are quite unfamiliar with divine lightning, so we won't put our names forward. The issue at hand is that both Fairy Mu and fellow Taoist Lan want to take fellow Taoist Han under their wing, and it's rather difficult to decide who is the better candidate. Here's my proposal. There are still a few years left until the implementation of our plan. For the first 2 years, we can get him to learn from Fairy Mu, and the 2 years after that will be spent under fellow Taoist Lan's tutelage. As for the final 2 years, those will be for fellow Taoist Han to cultivate and digest what he's been taught on his own. Do either of you two have any objections?" Liu Zhu said in an emotionless voice. Both of the women faltered upon hearing this proposal. "He, that's a brilliant suggestion, brother Liu Zhu. Neither of the fellow Taoists seems willing to back down, so this is the best way to proceed." One of the red-robed figures cackled as he rubbed his hands together. The white-haired beauty hesitated momentarily before nodding in response. "Seeing as both fellow Taoist Liu Zhu and fellow Taoist Dai Zhu approve of this arrangement, then I have no objections either." In contrast, Mu Qing remained silent with a contemplative look on her face. A cold light flashed through Liu Zhu's eyes as he asked in a cold voice, "Are you unhappy with this arrangement, Fairy Mu?" "Of course not, we'll do as you say." Mu Qing's heart stirred as she forced a smile onto her face. "Then it's settled. These are all trivial matters anyway. Everything is building toward the implementation of our grand scheme. Fellow Taoist Han, will give you 6 years to master the true power of the divine devil-bane lightning. If you're able to do so, we'll take you to a place where brilliant rewards will await you. But if you can't master the divine lightning in 6 years, one of the red-robed figures began before his voice trailed off. Even though he hadn't finished his sentence, the threat in his words was quite apparent. Han Li's expression darkened a little upon hearing this. "Rest assured, fellow Taoist Han, you're able to attain this divine lightning at such a young age, so you must possess outstanding aptitude. For someone like you, mastering the divine lightning in 6 years will be no issue at all. However, in order to prevent you from attempting to do anything to our detriment, we'll have to place some restrictions on your body," the white-haired beauty said before suddenly raising a hand. A gray thread shot forth without any hesitation, reaching Han Li in the blink of an eye. Han Li's expression changed drastically, and he reflexively tried to evade, but the nearby space suddenly tightened, following which he was completely immobilized by an enormous force. Han Li's eyelids twitched, and after a series of thoughts flashed rapidly through his mind, he refrained from using any of his powers to try and resist. He merely looked on, as the silver thread disappeared into his body with a dark expression. Almost at the exact same moment, Liu Zhu, Mu Qing, and Dai Zhu released a ball of black qi, an orb of green light, and a cloud of blood mist respectively, all of which also disappeared into Han Li's body in quick succession. Only then did the enormous power weighing down on Han Li disappear. He hurriedly conducted an internal inspection of his body with his spiritual sense, and his findings left him rather concerned, but also allowed him to heave an internal sigh of relief. The restrictions that had entered his body were merely tracking symbols that wouldn't actually be able to harm him. However, with these things in his body, it would be next to impossible for him to escape. Fellow Taoist Han, you'll be staying in the Wood Immortal Valley for the next 2 years. After that, fellow Taoist Lan will send someone to take you to her. That will be the extent of our discussion on this matter. Let's discuss some other things now. Fellow Taoist Lan, I heard that you've refined almost all 8,000 profound ghosts, but you're still missing. Liu Zhu quickly moved on to other subjects after settling this issue. Everyone else listened, while interjecting from time to time in a spirited discussion. Throughout this entire process, the demon monarchs gave no opportunities for Han Li to speak, and they had no intention of hearing what he had to say. Letter 1D4 1F, letter 1D5 6 3, letter 1D5 F2, letter 1D5 5 6, letter 1D5 6 8, letter 1D5 F2, letter 1D5 F0, letter 1D6 9 8, letter 1D4 6. But then again, he really didn't have the right to make his opinions heard in the face of 4 demon monarchs at the body integration state and above. After all, regardless of whether it was in the human world or the spirit realm, power determined one's rights. A mere deity transformation cultivator like him was far too insignificant to take seriously. As such, even though Han Li was feeling quite gloomy, he could only remain silent while pondering what he had just heard. The demon monarchs hadn't revealed many details, but he roughly understood the situation now. As expected, these beings wanted to borrow the power of his divine devil-bane lightning, and they wanted to use it to break some infernal river restriction. However, what was it that they had said about truly mastering the divine devil-bane lightning? Could it be that there was some kind of unique method to maximize the divine lightning's power? Or was there another ability he could unleash with it? Han Li was completely perplexed. All of a sudden, Han Li sensed someone scrutinizing him, and he looked up just in time to meet a furtive glance from Yuan Yao. Yuan Yao remained completely expressionless even after meeting Han Li's gaze, but Han Li's expression stirred slightly. Only after a while did he withdraw his gaze in an unhurried manner. The demon monarchs discussed many things in front of Han Li, but none of them mentioned Han Li in their subsequent discussion. At this point, Han Li had already backed away to the side, and was secretly inspecting these demon monarchs. In all honesty, the 2 most mysterious and unfathomable beings among these 4 demon monarchs were Liu Zhu and Dai Zhu. The former was emanating a frosty aura that was extremely unsettling, and he didn't even seem to be a living being. If it weren't for the fact that it was clearly moving and speaking, Han Li would have been led to suspect that he was an inanimate object. The latter was also quite unfathomable to him, as both of the red-robed figures were completely identical in every single way. Their voices, statures, and auras were both completely identical, and both of them were referred to as Dai Zhu, thereby further adding to Han Li's confusion. As for Mu Qing and the white-haired beauty, Han Li had roughly gleaned their origins. Mu Qing's body was enshrouded in a layer of black that even his bright-sight spirit eyes were unable to see through, but he could glean a faint wisp of green through the black light. In conjunction with the extremely pure wood attribute spiritual power emanating from her body, Han Li was almost certain that she was a rare wood spirit demon, but he didn't know what kind of spirit wood her true body consisted of. As for the white-haired beauty, her body contained the densest yin qi that he had ever seen. Furthermore, judging from the conversation between the demon monarchs, Han Li could determine that she was a ghostly demon. As such, the fact that she was able to manifest a body identical to that of a normal person was a sufficient indication of her power. However, Han Li also noticed that Yuan Yao's body also contained dense yin qi, suggesting that she was also no longer a normal human. However, she wasn't a true ghostly being like the white-haired woman, so she had to have gone down a slightly different path. Yan Li's situation was also identical to Yuan Yao's. Judging from the auras emanating from their bodies, the 2 of them were only at the early deity transformation stage. For them to be allowed to accompany the white-haired beauty with their cultivation bases suggested that the woman truly adored them, or was keeping them around for other purposes. The discussion between the demon monarchs didn't last too long. There were occasional clashes of opinions, but they were quickly resolved through diplomatic votes. After a while, everything had been discussed, and everyone got up to leave. Mu Qing rose to her feet and saw off the demon monarchs in person. Letter 1D6A letter 1D42B letter 1D6AT letter 1D5F2 letter 1D568 letter 1D41E. Letter 1D554 letter 1D428 letter 1D5FA. When the two red-robed beings were on their way out, they just so happened to pass by Han Li, and one of them asked, "Were you the one who destroyed the two puppets I sent out?" Han Li hesitated momentarily before bowing as he gave an honest reply. "They were indeed destroyed by me. I was unaware that they belonged to you at the time, Senior, so please don't hold it against me. A couple of blood puppets aren't significant enough for me to lose sleep over. However, I can't just let you get away with this. Why don't you do me a small favor at some point in the future to make up for this?" Du Zhu suggested. Han Li faltered slightly upon hearing this, yet when he raised his head again, the two red-robed figures had already walked past him as if they hadn't said anything to him at all. Han Li's brows furrowed, and he couldn't help but feel as if he had more trouble on his hands. The white-haired beauties trio was the final group to depart, and they also walked past Han Li. The beauty merely smiled at him, yet didn't say anything. As for Yuan Yao, she remained completely expressionless, as if she couldn't even see Han Li. In contrast, Yan Li blinked and was looking at Han Li with a contemplative light in her eyes. Han Li's lips suddenly twitched in a barely noticeable manner, following which one of his hands suddenly clenched up into a fist within the sleeve of his robes. As soon as everyone had left, Zhu Du turned to Han Li with a smile and said, "Congratulations, Brother Han. Everyone is holding you in very high regard." "What is there to congratulate me about? I'm still completely in the dark about everything. Do you know what they were referring to when they were talking about true mastery of my divine devil-bane lightning, Senior Zhu? Will it actually improve the power of my lightning?" Han Li asked with a wry smile on his face. Han Li's surprise, Zhu Du actually gave him a detailed response. I do actually know a little bit about this. In ancient times, divine devil-bane lightning was the vastly renowned paramount wood attribute divine lightning, and was one of the 5 elemental true lightnings. It specialized in vanquishing devilish chi and all evil creatures, and its power far exceeds that of even my heavenly blood lightning. However, unless this lightning is refined through a special method, the wielder will only be able to unleash a tiny portion of its power. During the reign of the evil dragon race in ancient times, they destroyed all of the golden lightning bamboo they could find, essentially erasing the existence of divine devil-bane lightning off the face of the spirit realm, so its special refinement method naturally became lost. At the very least, I do not know of this method. The evil dragon race, Han Li faltered slightly upon hearing this. He had never heard of such a race in the spirit realm back when he was in human territory. You've never heard of such a race, right, fellow Taoist Han? That makes sense. Due to the excessively violent and oppressive way through which they treated other races during ancient times, a joint rebellion from all other races toppled their despotic rule. All of the current major races of the spirit realm rose into prominence in the aftermath of that epic war, while the name of the evil dragon race fell into complete obscurity, Zhu Du explained, giving Han Li a brief history lesson in the process. Han Li was feeling a little overwhelmed by this information. How had the history books of the human race and flying spirit race failed to record such a monumental event? Despite his confusion, he refrained from asking any questions. By the way, when I say ancient times, I mean well and truly in the distant past. At that point, your flying spirit race hadn't even come into existence yet, so they naturally wouldn't have any records of this piece of history, Zhu Du chuckled, seemingly having identified Han Li's confusion. I see, Han Li was immediately enlightened. According to the historical records of the human race, they had appeared in the spirit realm after the flying spirit race, so it was no surprise that they didn't have records regarding this matter, either. Just as Han Li and Zhu Du were chatting with one another, footsteps sounded outside the wooden hall, and Mu Qing strode in through the doors. Zhu Du immediately ceased conversing with Han Li as he made his way over to Mu Qing and extended a respectful salute. Mu Qing nodded in an errant gesture of acknowledgement before sitting back down on her giant golden flower, supporting her chin with a hand as she sat in silence. She seemed to be mulling over a difficult decision, and she didn't say anything for a long while. Han Li didn't know what was happening, so he cast a glance toward Zudu to gauge his reaction. The bloodworm wore a calm and collected expression on his face, seemingly already accustomed to such occurrences. Listen up, fellow Taoist Han. I don't care what you're thinking, but you have to master the divine devil-bane lightning under my tutelage within these 2 years. Once you do, I'll think of a way to waive the 2-year period you have to spend with that ghost hag. Understood? Mu Qing's voice sounded from within the black light. Han Li's expression stirred slightly, and a wry smile appeared on his face as he replied, I'll be sure to do my best, Senior Mu Qing. HMPH, you'd better do your best. Otherwise, I won't let you go to that ghost hag without leaving you a memento to remember me with. Mu Qing's voice suddenly became cold and forbidding. Han Li's heart sank, and he could only fall silent. 3 days from now, move over to my wood essence cave. I'll instruct you to master your lightning during these 2 years. Zudu, I'll leave the preparations for the blood sacrifice to you during this time, Mu Qing instructed in an implacable voice. Yes, mistress. Zudu was rather surprised to hear this, but he naturally accepted his orders. Han Li also faltered slightly in response. After that, Mu Qing waved a dismissive hand as she said, All right, I'm feeling a little weary, so all of you can go back for now. Han Li and Zudu could only depart after extending farewell salutes. As soon as they exited the hall, Zudu suddenly said, Tusk, you're a lucky man, Brother Han. To think that my mistress is going to instruct you in person. This is a brilliant opportunity for you. Is that so? I don't even know if I can master my lightning in 2 years. Han Li shook his head in a rather gloomy manner. Haha, the fact that my mistress said what she just did indicates that she has confidence in you, so there's no need to worry, Brother Han. I still have some matters to take care of, so I'll be taking my leave now. Zudu chuckled before flying away as a streak of crimson light. Han Li stood on the spot and looked on at the departing streak of crimson light. Only after it had disappeared out of sight did he slowly return to his living quarters. Not long after that, Han Li was back in his pavilion. He immediately activated his restriction to prevent anyone from being able to conduct surveillance on him, then sat down on his bed with a dark expression. A while later, he suddenly raised a hand and glanced at his palm. There was a black character around the size of a grain of rice that had appeared on his palm, and upon careful inspection, Han Li discovered that it was the character for Yuan. A peculiar look appeared on Han Li's face upon seeing this. If he had been slightly skeptical about Yuan Yao's identity before, then all of that skepticism had now been wiped away. This character was something that had appeared soundlessly in his hand when Yuan Yao had brushed past him earlier. No trace of spiritual fluctuations had been set off during that process, so even the 4 demon monarchs were unable to detect anything. It was quite astonishing that a mere deity transformation cultivator was capable of doing something like this. Han Li extended a finger before gently tapping the Yuan character on his palm. A flash of green light erupted from his fingertip to wipe this character away. He then withdrew his hands into his sleeves and began to contemplate his situation with an indecisive expression. After a few moments, he suddenly extended a palm again. A low thunderclap erupted as a fist-sized ball of golden lightning surfaced over his palm, and its mass was fluctuating slightly. A series of shimmering strands of electricity were also flashing over its surface. Han Li appraised the ball of lightning expressionlessly before suddenly narrowing his eyes.